Are you ready to leave yet? I asked, glancing around the nearly empty room. Just waiting for the mover, Snow replied with a sigh. Honestly, it'll be a relief not seeing your face anymore. And changing the locks so meticulously as if I'd break in, that was just too much. I used to wonder why we needed such precautions, but now it all seems trivial. When I first met my husband, he was timid, always worried about what others thought. But after we got married, he turned into the classic henpecked husband. A week after moving into my new place, my husband showed up, frantic. It's me. Open up, he pleaded. Huh? Who are you? I feigned ignorance, facing my frantic husband. I'm Scarlett, 35, working part-time 3 days a week. It's been 2 years since I married Anthony. We didn't have kids, but I thought we could still be happy together. In the early days of our marriage, we'd spend nights talking about our hopes for the future. Neither of us had much experience with love, so it was tentative at first, but I thought we enjoyed each other's company. Let's be one of those couples who stay close even as we get older. Yeah, I like that idea. Maybe, 2 kids. That's exactly what I was thinking. A boy and a girl. Really? Me too. Such casual conversations amused me, someone who had little interest in love or marriage. Meeting Anthony came as a surprise. We crossed paths at a party I attended reluctantly, just to fill in numbers. He seemed to be in the same boat and we bonded over our similar situations, eventually becoming friends. Back then, he was serious and somewhat shy, always considerate towards me, which I found endearing. And then, out of the blue, Scarlett, will you marry me? I want to make you happy. What? But we're not even dating yet. Oh, right. His sudden proposal didn't deter me. Instead, I wondered if maybe it could work with him. If you're okay with me, then yes, I accept. Really? Absolutely. I still recall Anthony's joy when I agreed to marry him. I believe wholeheartedly that with Anthony, my future could be happy. We tied the knot only 3 months after meeting, a whirlwind for both of us. With our limited romantic experience, we often stumbled through, but that was part of the adventure. Not long after, we moved in together, but after about a month, the gap between my ideals and reality started to become apparent. Scarlett, there's something I'd like to discuss with you. What is it? That day, Anthony appeared different, more serious and tense. I hate to bring this up, but could you consider quitting your job and becoming a homemaker? What? His sudden request shocked me. I couldn't fathom why he would ask such a thing. He had never previously mentioned any dissatisfaction with my job, and this was just the beginning. May I ask why? I inquired, puzzled by his sudden change. When Scarlett works, it makes me feel like I'm not needed. Did someone say that to you? It's not that, but all the wives of married men in my company are stay-at-home moms. I had made it clear from the start of our marriage that I wanted to keep working, especially since saving money was crucial for our future. Anthony's sudden insistence on this issue left me bewildered. But we agreed I would continue working after we got married, didn't we? I know, but as my wife, Scarlett, I hope you'll consider my perspective. Then why not just pretend I've quit? There's no need for me to actually leave my job. I reiterated my reluctance to quit, but Anthony seemed more concerned about social appearances. My attempts to reason with him fell on deaf ears. Look, if things stay this way, I'll face ridicule from my colleagues and bosses. I'm the head of this household, aren't I? Please just do as I ask. Either way, I can't make a decision on the spot. Let me think about it. All right, but please decide soon. Yet I knew I couldn't let things linger. I worried about what might come next if I didn't act promptly. So I sought advice from my boss, Robinson. I had been working as an administrative assistant at the company since I graduated from high school. Robinson herself had faced a similar situation. Her ex-husband had been controlling, and she had eventually divorced him. Now she's a dedicated single mother whom I greatly admire. That must have been tough. I've considered divorce, but it's complicated since we're newlyweds. Yes, I haven't thought about that yet. But if you quit, it'll be hard to find someone to replace you, Scarlett. I'm not planning to quit outright. I want to find a way to continue working, if possible. How about we stick with our current part-time arrangement for now? Going full-time might attract too much attention. That's a smart move. I'll talk it over with Anthony. If he still opposes it, I'll take Robinson's advice and request part-time hours. Sounds like a sensible plan. Remember, you can always rely on me for guidance. I'm here to support you as your senior. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Our conversation continued, and I learned that Robinson's ex-husband had also undergone a significant change after marriage, much like my own situation. It was a revelation. I had never considered the possibility before, but now I realize that some men completely transform after marriage, almost becoming different people. Looking at it from this angle, perhaps I had been deceived. Despite numerous discussions with Anthony, we remained deadlocked. Anyway, isn't it a woman's role after marriage to listen to her husband and manage the household? What era are you living in? Nowadays, it's common for both spouses to work. Maybe for other couples, but we're different. You see that, don't you? I understand your perspective, but I can't agree with it. Please try to see things from my point of view. Following that, Anthony persisted daily until I would concede to quitting my job. Ultimately, his efforts to persuade me fell short. I reached out to Robinson and decided to formally resign. However, in reality, I continued to work part-time, 3 days a week. Thankfully, my boss understood my predicament and allowed me to reduce my hours. I resigned from my job at the company just as Anthony wanted. Really? Thank you. Now I can feel more secure about my position at work. I'm glad to hear that. By now, it seemed Anthony was solely focused on how others perceived him. I couldn't help but feel bewildered by his abrupt transformation. I chose to deceive him, hoping to salvage our relationship, but soon realized it was a mistake. I had hopes starting anew would improve things between us, yet he continued to assert his superiority and direct his frustrations at me. Today, a junior colleague is coming over. I need you to host. What? I had no idea. Sorry, it was a last-minute decision. Just keep it simple. Please get everything ready. Wait a minute. He hung up, so I prepared drinks and snacks for the guests. However, Anthony appeared displeased. Didn't I ask you to prepare for today? You mentioned just keeping it basic. And you took that literally. This reflects poorly on me. I need you to fulfill your role as a wife properly. What exactly does that mean? I did my best. Is there an issue with me? No, not really. Anthony's expression was unlike anything I had seen before. I was so taken aback that I couldn't find any words. From then on, he started inviting guests over almost every week. While he enjoyed himself, he expected me to be on standby, prepared for anything. I think he wanted to impress everyone with how capable a husband he is. Anthony, having guests over every week seems excessive. No, it's fine. Everyone enjoys it, and you should support my decisions. It's your duty as my wife, Scarlett. But it's also expensive. You'll figure it out. Yet Anthony's extravagance showed no signs of slowing down. How exactly am I supposed to manage it? Oh, stop complaining. Whenever I asked a question he didn't like, he dismissed it as nagging and avoided giving a direct answer. Every morning, after waking up, preparing meals, making lunch sandwiches, and seeing Anthony off with a suit ready for his day, I tackled household chores. On days when I worked part-time from 10 o'clock a.m. to 3 o'clock p.m., there was barely any time to rest. Despite the busyness, I cherished my job, and working often felt like a welcome respite. Scarlett, you seem tired lately. Are you? Yeah, a bit actually. Let me know if there's anything I can do. I'm here to help in any way I can, of course. Thank you, Sophia. You've been such a reliable support. Unlike Anthony, you've noticed how his treatment of me has been deteriorating day by day. Sophia knew about my secret part-time work and kept it hidden from Anthony. I appreciate everything, Sophia. Don't mention it, but I never imagined Anthony would behave like this. Neither did I. I've tried talking to him, but he won't listen, and we can hardly have a meaningful conversation anymore. I'm sorry, if only I were stronger. Don't be too hard on yourself. You're managing work and household tasks admirably. I really appreciate all your help. I'm glad to hear that. Living with Sophia had been nothing but a positive experience for me. However, it seemed Anthony wasn't comfortable with how close Sophia and I had become, and because of that, he made a shocking decision. Where's Sophia? Mom's gone. What do you mean, gone? Mom's getting older, and I thought it would be best for her to be in a facility. You actually placed her in a home. Yeah, just finished settling her into the new place. Now I have the house to myself. I couldn't believe it happened while I was at my parents' home. The fact that he placed his own mother in a facility shocked me. She was injured, but not to the extent that she needed full-time care. He must have sent Sophia away just to have the house to himself. When I visited Sophia at the facility, she seemed surprisingly well. I'm sorry it had to come to this. No, Sophia, it's not your fault. I never expected him to go to such lengths. I'm afraid of what he might do if I resist. I'll miss Sophia, but I'll manage. If you need anything, you're always welcome here. Thank you. Afterward, we moved into my in-laws' house from our previous home. Despite managing the household, Anthony never acknowledged my efforts or showed gratitude. The idea of having children, which we had once eagerly discussed, now seemed completely out of reach. Anthony disregarded me, often preferring to spend his time away from home. On top of that, he began imposing arbitrary rules. No matter how late Anthony returned, I was required to stay awake until his arrival. If I happened to wake up later than him in the morning, he would become upset. What time will you be home today? I'm not sure. Just stay up until I get back, okay? Okay. One day, after a similar exchange, when Anthony returned home, I noticed something unusual as I took his suit to hang it up. There was a fragrance in the air, a sweet feminine scent that was unfamiliar to me. Since I didn't wear perfume, it was unmistakable evidence of an affair. Whenever he came home late, I would catch whiffs of the same perfume. That day, he'd unusually suggested I go to bed before him, raising my suspicions. Quietly, I went to the living room and overheard their conversation. Oh, she's clueless. When are you going to leave her? I'll kick her out soon enough. Their voices carried clearly, especially the woman's, which was quite loud. From their discussion, it was evident their relationship had been ongoing for some time. While the perfume incident hadn't surprised me, I was deeply disgusted. He was still technically my husband, and despite my wishful thinking, his mistreatment of me hadn't changed. It was nearing our 2-year mark of marriage. It's sudden, but I have a business trip. The day after tomorrow, I need you to get everything ready. That's very short notice. I'll be away for about 3 days. Please make sure my clothes are prepared. Got it. I can't believe he could make up such a lie about a business trip. It wasn't a business trip, it was a trip with his mistress. I recall the conversation I had with Anthony's colleague's wife when we met previously. Be cautious if he suddenly mentions a business trip. Our company doesn't even have those. I had already discovered evidence earlier. I found a chat on his mobile phone, left in the living room, detailing how he had taken paid leave for this supposed trip. It marked the beginning of the end for our marriage. Armed with proof of his affair, I intended to confront him with divorce papers upon his return. However, it was my husband who made the first move. Are you ready to leave? The movers will be here soon. That was the first thing he said upon returning home. He instructed me to vacate the house while he was away. I need you to be gone before I get back. What? Why are you saying this all of a sudden? That's exactly what I said. You can't spring this on me and expect me to leave immediately. Then I'll wait a bit, but start preparing to leave. Goodbye. I never imagined my once timid, overly concerned about others' opinions husband would transform into such a submissive partner. But this was the final straw. The future I once envisioned with him now felt like a distant memory. Living with such a man, I couldn't envision a bright future ahead. I wonder what comes next. This could get interesting. Has the mover arrived yet? No need to rush, they should be here soon. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, I'm changing the locks on the house. Alright, got it. The thought of not having to see your face again is a relief. I couldn't believe those were his parting words after nearly 2 years of marriage. Convinced our relationship was over, I swiftly left the premises. Soon after, I instructed my lawyer to file for divorce. Despite our circumstances, my husband boldly posted pictures with his mistress on social media. I couldn't fathom his audacity. How could he be so reckless? Not realizing he was providing evidence of his affair, even our mutual friends noticed his strange behavior and reached out to inquire. After leaving my in-laws' home, I returned to full-time work, transitioning from part-time. Additionally, I moved into the suburban high-rise apartment I had long dreamed of. It was spacious for one person, but without Anthony, it felt wonderfully comfortable. I had been waiting anxiously for any sign of contact from him. Then one morning about a month after settling into my new place, the doorbell rang. Checking the monitor, I was surprised to see Anthony standing there. Hey, it's me, Anthony. Open up, Scarlett. His abrupt demand to be let in was presumptuous beyond belief. I couldn't comprehend his actions anymore. Deciding to feign ignorance, I thought it might be more entertaining than simply turning him away. Who are you? I'm sorry, but I don't know you. Don't tell me you've forgotten your husband's face. I'm not married. I think you've mistaken me for someone else. He appeared desperate, almost on the brink of tears, a shadow of his former timid self from our earlier days. Despite his plea, I stood firm and continued to treat him like a stranger. Please just listen. I've been deceived and I need Scarlett's help. I'm sorry, but I'm not obligated to assist you. If you persist, I'll have to call the police. Seriously. After all, I don't know you. Anthony must have believed I would always be there to resolve his problems. But the person I had become wouldn't entertain such thoughts. Yet my patience was wearing thin with a husband who refused to give up. That's it. You made this mess, so it's up to you to fix it. You don't have to be so tough on me. What? Oh, and by the way, you can't stay at your parents' place anymore. What do you mean? Do you know whose name the house is under? No, but it used to belong to Sophia. Now it's in my name. Why? I explained to Anthony why things had reached this point. Anthony insisted I leave. When I confided in Sophia, even she was visibly upset and disappointed. I can't believe my son has turned out like this. I'm truly sorry, especially after all the help you've given us, Sophia. You're divorcing Anthony, aren't you? Yes, it's for the best. In that case, I'll transfer the house to you. Why would Sophia transfer their rights to their in-laws' house to me? Anthony had no idea he was living with his mistress throughout all of this. That's the situation. Understand and leave promptly. We likely won't cross paths again anyway. Just one more thing. If he persists, I will call the police. With that, he finally relented and departed. Of course, the divorce proceeded as planned and I received the settlement guarantee from him. As it turned out, Anthony had been deceived and financially drained by his mistress. In addition to that, the divorce settlement totaled approximately $20,000. His mistress had promptly abandoned him, but I wasn't about to let it go. I employed both a lawyer and a detective to locate him. I'm also pursuing a divorce settlement claim from him. It appears I can secure over $10,000. Furthermore, ownership of the house was officially transferred to me. I had to insist that Anthony leave, and though he initially resisted, legal processes left him no choice but to comply. I'm unaware of his current residence and frankly, I have no interest. His company also discovered the photos he posted with his mistress on social media. Unable to endure the scrutiny due to his past facade of living extravagantly, he chose to resign voluntarily. The outcome felt inevitable given his true character. If I had one last thing to say, it would be this. I don't dwell on it. I'm divorced now, but I view it as a learning opportunity and opt to move forward positively. My bond with Sophia endures. I intend to concentrate on my career independently and relish life as a single person.
The smell of barbecue smoke and family disappointment hung thick in the air at Riverside Park. Our annual Torres family reunion was in full swing, complete with the usual mix of gossip, competition, and carefully staged photo opportunities that would dominate social media for the next month. I stood at the edge of the pavilion watching my siblings arrange themselves for what had become their signature shot, the successful Torres children photo that would inevitably end up framed in our parents' living room and posted across every family member's Instagram account. Maya, step back a little, my sister Isabella commanded, adjusting her designer blazer for the camera. At 32, she was the eldest and never let anyone forget it. Her real estate firm had made her wealthy enough to afford the kind of clothes that screamed success from across a parking lot. My brother Carlos stood beside her, checking his Rolex, a gift he'd bought himself to celebrate making partner at his law firm. At 30, he'd achieved everything our parents had dreamed of when they immigrated here 40 years ago. Prestigious job, expensive car, house in the best neighborhood. Actually, Isabella said, looking at me with that familiar expression of benevolent condescension, step aside completely, Maya. This photo is for achievers only. The words hit exactly as she'd intended them to. I'm Maya Torres, 26 years old, and in my family's eyes, the one who threw away her potential. While Isabella conquered commercial real estate and Carlos climbed the legal ladder, I'd chosen a different path. One that led me away from traditional success markers and into what they considered a dead-end career in technology consulting. Come on, said my cousin Roberto, holding up his phone to take the photo. Maya works hard too. Isabella's laugh was perfectly calibrated to wound. Working hard at what? She won't even tell us what her company actually does. Some kind of computer thing. Very mysterious. She exchanged a knowing look with Carlos. We keep hoping she'll grow out of this phase and get a real job. Carlos nodded sagely. Dad's friend at the bank said they're always looking for bilingual staff. Great benefits, steady work. Much more stable than whatever Maya's doing with her algorithms. I could have corrected him, told him that my computer thing was actually artificial intelligence development, that my company had just revolutionized data processing for Fortune 500 companies, that the contracts I'd been working on would transform entire industries. But I'd learned years ago that explaining my work to my family was like describing color to people who'd chosen to see only in black and white. It's fine, I said quietly, stepping away from the group. Take your photo. As they arranged themselves, Isabella in the center, naturally Carlos to her right, leaving space for successful siblings only, I checked my phone. Several missed calls from my assistant, 3 texts from my publicist, and 2 voicemails I hadn't had time to return. The camera clicked as Roberto captured their perfect moment. 3 successful Torres children, all dressed for success, all living the American dream their parents had sacrificed everything to provide. Beautiful, called out my mother from across the pavilion. Mis hijos exitosos. My successful children. The pride in her voice was unmistakable, and the absence of any reference to her 4th child was equally clear. That's when my phone rang. The caller ID showed a New York number I'd been expecting. I glanced around. My family was still basking in the afterglow of their photo session, passing Roberto's phone around to admire the results. Hello. I answered, walking a few steps away for privacy. Ms. Torres? This is Jennifer Walsh from Forbes magazine. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. My heart jumped, but I kept my voice steady. Not at all. Perfect timing, actually. Wonderful. I'm calling to confirm tomorrow's cover shoot. The photographer will meet you at the studio at 9 a.m. sharp. We're all very excited about the Youngest Billionaire feature. The story is already generating incredible buzz. The words youngest billionaire and cover shoot seemed to echo in the sudden quiet that had fallen over my family's conversation. I realized they'd all stopped talking and were staring at me. That sounds perfect, I said, still calm but loud enough for everyone to hear clearly. Should I bring anything specific for the interview portion? Just yourself and that brilliant mind that built Quantum Leap AI from the ground up. Our readers are fascinated by your story, how you revolutionized machine learning while everyone thought you were just another tech startup. The fact that you've been operating under the radar while building a billion-dollar empire is exactly the kind of story Forbes loves to tell. Isabella's designer water bottle slipped from her hand and clattered to the picnic table. Carlos had gone completely still, his phone frozen halfway to his ear. Roberto was still holding his camera, but his mouth had fallen open. Miss Torres. Jennifer continued. Are you still there? Yes, sorry. I'm at a family gathering. Tomorrow at 9 works perfectly. Excellent. Oh, and the photographer specifically requested to capture some shots with your original prototype if you still have it. The one you built in your garage that started everything. Our readers love those origin story details. Of course. I'll bring the original quantum processor prototype. The one that proved classical computers could interface with quantum systems. By now the entire family reunion had gone silent. Conversations at nearby tables had stopped. Children had paused mid-run to stare at the woman on the phone who was apparently not who they thought she was. Perfect. We'll see you tomorrow, Ms. Torres. Congratulations again on making Forbes' Youngest Billionaire list. The story's going to be incredible. I ended the call and tucked my phone away. The silence stretched for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. Isabella found her voice first. Billionaire. The word came out as barely a whisper. Forbes magazine? Carlos added, his lawyer's training finally kicking in as he processed what he'd just heard. I smiled, the same calm smile I'd been perfecting for years while they dismissed my achievements. They're doing a feature story. Apparently, Quantum Leap AI is more newsworthy than I expected. Quantum Leap AI, my father repeated slowly, walking over from where he'd been manning the grill. That's your company? That's my company, I confirmed. We develop artificial intelligence systems that can process quantum-level data. Essentially, we've created computers that think like human brains but process information at quantum speeds. The technical explanation sailed over most of their heads, but the word billionaire had landed with perfect clarity. "You're a billionaire," Isabella said, and for the first time in my life, I heard uncertainty in her voice. "According to Forbes, yes. Though honestly, most of that value is tied up in company equity and ongoing contracts. The cash flow is more modest." "More modest," Carlos repeated faintly. Roberto was still holding his phone, staring at the photo he'd just taken. Should I take another picture?" "With Maya?" Isabella looked at the camera, then at me, then back at the camera. We didn't know." "You never asked," I said simply. "Every time I tried to explain what I was working on, you told me to get a real job." My mother approached slowly, as if I might disappear if she moved too quickly. "Mija, why didn't you tell us?" I thought about all the Sunday dinners where I'd tried to share my excitement about breakthrough developments, only to have the conversation immediately shift to Isabella's latest property sale or Carlos's courtroom victories. All the times I'd mention meetings with investors, only to have them dismissed as playing with computers. I tried, Mommy. But every time I mentioned my work, you changed the subject. You wanted to hear about Isabella's real estate deals and Carlos's cases. My algorithms weren't interesting enough for family dinner conversation. Dad set down his grilling tongs and joined the circle that had formed around me. "Algorithms that made you a billionaire. Algorithms that solved problems people said were impossible to solve," I corrected. "The money is just a side effect." Isabella was scrolling frantically through her phone. "Quantum Leap AI. Maya, there are articles about your company. TechCrunch, Wall Street Journal, MIT Technology Review. They're calling you the most important innovator in artificial intelligence." "When did this happen?" Carlos demanded, his voice carrying that edge it got when he felt left out of important information. "It's been building for 3 years," I said. "But we've been operating in stealth mode until now. Most of our contracts were confidential. Government agencies, major tech companies, financial institutions. They wanted our technology but didn't want competitors to know they were using it." "Government agencies?" Dad's eyebrows shot up. "NASA's using our systems to process data from the James Webb Telescope. The Department of Defense has contracts for threat assessment algorithms. Goldman Sachs is using our AI to predict market patterns. Google licensed our quantum classical interface technology for their next generation of search algorithms." Each revelation hit like a small explosion. My family stood there processing the fact that their unsuccessful daughter had been quietly building technology that was reshaping multiple industries. "The garage," my mother said suddenly. "You were always in the garage working on something. We thought you were just tinkering." "I was building the first quantum classical interface processor," I said. "It took me 2 years to get it working properly. Another year to prove it could scale. Then I started the company." Isabella was still staring at her phone. "There's a photo of you here. At the White House. With the President. Advisory Committee on Artificial Intelligence and National Security," I explained. "We briefed them on quantum computing applications last month." "You met the President," Carlos said slowly. "I briefed the President. There's a difference." Roberto finally lowered his camera. "Maya, I'm so sorry. We all are. We had no idea." "Of course you didn't," I said, but without bitterness. "You never asked what I was actually working on. You just assumed it wasn't important because it wasn't what you understood." My phone buzzed with another call. This time it was my assistant. "Excuse me," I said, stepping away again. "Hi, Sandra." "Maya, thank God. The MIT Technology Review wants to do a follow-up piece to the Forbes story. And Bloomberg is asking for an interview about the economic implications of quantum AI. Also, your mother just called the office asking if you're really going to be on the cover of Forbes." I glanced over at my family, who were all watching me with new eyes. "She called the office? Asked to speak to Maya's boss to confirm she's really successful. I explained that you are the boss. I think she's still processing. I'll handle it. What else? 3 more government agencies want briefings. Stanford is offering you a research chair. And Tesla wants to discuss integrating our AI into their autonomous driving systems. Set up preliminary meetings for next week. And Sandra, my family is going to have questions. Lots of questions. Clear my calendar for Sunday dinners for the next month." After I hung up, I found my family exactly where I'd left them, still standing in a shell-shocked circle around the picnic table. Stanford offered you a job, Carlos said. It wasn't a question he'd clearly overheard. A research chair. Full professor with funding for whatever projects I want to pursue. Are you going to take it? Isabella asked. Probably not. I like running my own company, though I might do some guest lectures. My uncle Miguel, who'd been quietly listening from a nearby table, approached with a confused expression. Mija, if you're so successful, why do you still drive that old Honda? I laughed, the first genuine laugh I'd had all day. Because it gets good gas mileage and has never broken down. Why would I need a different car? But you're a billionaire, my cousin Sophia said as if I'd missed that detail. Most billionaires don't actually have billions in cash sitting around, I explained. My wealth is in company equity, intellectual property, and investments. Plus I like my car. It's practical. Isabella was studying me with new interest. The apartment you live in, is that real or are you pretending to be modest? It's real. I like my apartment. It's close to the office, has good security, and I don't need more space. But you could afford more, Carlos pressed. I could afford a lot of things. That doesn't mean I need them. Dad had been quiet through this exchange, but now he spoke up. When your mother called your office, what did your assistant tell her? That I'm the CEO and founder of Quantum Leap AI. That we have offices in San Francisco, Boston, and London. That our technology is being used by some of the largest companies and government agencies in the world. And tomorrow you'll be on the cover of Forbes, Mom said, still processing. Tomorrow I'll be on the cover of Forbes. Roberto raised his phone again. Can we take another photo? All 4 siblings. Isabella stepped forward. Maya, I owe you an apology. We all do. We've been incredibly unfair. You've been viewing success through a very narrow lens, I agreed. But that's not entirely your fault. Society teaches us that success looks a certain way. Expensive clothes, fancy cars, traditional careers. My kind of success doesn't fit that mold. Carlos shook his head. Billionaire doesn't fit the mold? Billionaire who drives a Honda and lives in a modest apartment and wears clothes from Target, I clarified. That confuses people. Why? Mom asked. Why live modestly if you don't have to? I thought about how to explain this to people who'd spent their lives chasing visible markers of success. Because the work is what matters to me. The problems I'm solving, the technology I'm developing, the potential to change how computers think. That's what gets me up in the morning. A bigger house or fancier car wouldn't make the work more meaningful. But people don't know you're successful, Isabella protested. The people who matter know. My clients know. My employees know. The scientific community knows. Random strangers at the grocery store don't need to know. Until tomorrow, Carlos said with a slight smile. Until tomorrow, I agreed. After the Forbes article comes out, maintaining privacy is going to be considerably more difficult. Roberto was setting up his phone again. Hey, family photo. All 4 siblings. Maya in the center this time. I don't need to be in the center, I said. Yes, you do, Isabella said firmly. We've been doing this wrong for years. Time to get it right. As we arranged ourselves, me in the center feeling awkward about the sudden attention, I caught my mother's eye. She was crying but trying to hide it. Mommy, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong, Mija. Just proud. I'm sorry. We should have listened better. It's okay. No, it's not okay, Dad interrupted. We taught you kids to work hard and chase your dreams. But then when you achieved something extraordinary, we didn't recognize it because it didn't look like what we expected. The camera clicked, capturing a very different kind of family photo. 4 siblings, but this time with the real achiever in the center, surrounded by family members who were finally seeing her clearly. Can I ask you something? Isabella said as we broke apart. The technology you're developing, what's it going to change? It was the first time in years anyone in my family had asked about my actual work with genuine curiosity. Everything, I said simply. Medical diagnosis, climate modeling, financial systems, space exploration, transportation, communication. We're essentially teaching computers to think like human brains but process information at quantum speeds. It's going to accelerate human knowledge by decades, maybe centuries. And you built this in our garage, Mom said wonderingly. I built the prototype in your garage. The real development happened in labs and clean rooms and server farms. But yes, it started in the garage. Carlos was scrolling through articles on his phone. Maya, there's a whole Wikipedia page about you. It says you published your first AI paper when you were 19. My undergraduate thesis got picked up by the Journal of Artificial Intelligence. That was unexpected. Unexpected. Isabella laughed. Maya, you were publishing graduate-level research as an undergraduate? The math just made sense to me. I didn't realize it was unusual until my professor submitted it for publication. My phone buzzed again. Another New York number. Sorry, I should take this. Miss Torres? This is David Chen from 60 Minutes. We'd like to do a segment on Quantum Leap AI and your work in quantum computing. Would you be available for filming next week? I covered the phone and looked at my family. 60 Minutes wants to do a story. Isabella's eyes went wide. 60 Minutes? Would Tuesday work? I asked David. I have a family commitment Sunday that I'd prefer not to move. After I hung up, Roberto was shaking his head. Family commitment? Sunday dinner, I said. I try not to miss them. You've been coming to Sunday dinner every week while secretly being one of the most important people in technology, Carlos said. I've been coming to Sunday dinner every week while building a company that happens to be successful. There's a difference. Dad had been quiet, but now he spoke up. Mija, can you explain to me in simple terms what your computers do? I smiled. This was the conversation I'd been hoping to have for years. Imagine your brain, Poppy. It can process millions of pieces of information simultaneously, make connections between seemingly unrelated ideas, and come up with creative solutions to problems. But it does it slowly compared to a computer. He nodded. Now imagine a computer that can process information as fast as current computers, billions of calculations per second, but also make the kind of creative connections and intuitive leaps that human brains make. That's what we've built. And this helps with what? Everything. Medical researchers can analyze millions of genetic combinations to find cures for diseases. Climate scientists can model incredibly complex weather patterns to predict hurricanes months in advance. Financial analysts can spot market patterns that would take humans years to identify. Isabella was following along intently. So your AI isn't just faster, it's smarter? It's not smarter than humans, but it can process vastly more information than any human brain could handle, and it can spot patterns and make connections that would be impossible for us to see. And that's worth billions of dollars? Carlos asked. Apparently, I said. Though honestly, the money is almost irrelevant compared to the potential impact. We're working on applications that could help solve climate change, cure genetic diseases, prevent financial crises, even help with space exploration. My mother was studying me with new eyes. You really could change the world. We really could change the world, I corrected. This isn't a one-person operation. I have an incredible team of scientists, engineers, and researchers. Some of the smartest people on the planet. But you're the boss, Roberto said. I'm the founder info. But the best leaders surround themselves with people who are smarter than they are in specific areas. My phone was buzzing constantly now. I glanced at it and saw messages from venture capital firms, university researchers, government officials, and journalists. The Forbes article hasn't even come out yet, I murmured. What do you mean? Isabella asked. Word is spreading in the tech community that the article is coming. My phone's been buzzing all day with interview requests and partnership proposals. Carlos looked thoughtful. Maya, can I ask you something personal? Sure. Does it bother you that we didn't understand what you were doing? That we didn't support you? I considered the question carefully. It hurt sometimes, especially when I wanted to share exciting developments with family and felt like I couldn't. But honestly, it also protected me. Working in stealth mode without external pressure or expectations let me focus completely on the research and development. No distractions, Dad said. Exactly. No pressure to go public before we were ready. No family members asking for investment opportunities or insider information. No complications from people treating me differently because of money or fame. And now? Mom asked. Now that's all going to change. Forbes articles have a way of ending privacy permanently. Isabella was scrolling through her phone again. Maya, there are already people posting about seeing you at the family reunion. Someone got a photo of you on the phone with Forbes. I looked around the park and noticed several people with phones pointed in our direction. Word was spreading fast. Well, I said, I guess the stealth phase is officially over. My Uncle Miguel approached our table carrying a plate of food. Mija, I hate to interrupt, but my friend Jorge says his son works for Google and they've been trying to hire you for 2 years. Is that true? Google, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, and Tesla have all made offers, I confirmed. But I prefer running my own company. Tesla wants to hire you too? Sophia asked. Elon Musk personally called last month. They want to integrate our AI into their autonomous driving systems. Carlos set down his phone. Maya, I need to ask this directly. Are you really worth $1 billion? According to the private equity firms that valued our company for the Forbes article, yes. But that's paper wealth tied to company equity. It's not like I have $1 billion in my checking account. How much do you have in your checking account? Isabella asked, then immediately looked embarrassed. Sorry, that's none of my business. It's okay. Enough to live comfortably and fund new research projects. I pay myself a reasonable salary and reinvest most of the company profits into development and expansion. Roberto was taking more photos, documenting this surreal family conversation. Maya, can I ask you something? Why did you never brag about any of this? Even when we were giving you a hard time about your career. I thought about all the family gatherings where I'd been introduced as Maya, who works with computers, while Isabella was our successful daughter, the real estate mogul, and Carlos was our son, the lawyer. Because the work isn't about impressing people. It's about solving problems that matter. And honestly, I learned early on that talking about technical breakthroughs at family dinners was a good way to clear the room. We would have listened, Mom said. Would you? When I tried to explain machine learning algorithms, you told me to talk about something normal people could understand. When I mentioned quantum computing, you asked when I was going to get married and have kids instead. The truth of that hit hard. I could see the recognition in their faces. We're sorry, Isabella said quietly. We really are. I know you are. And I appreciate that. But the important thing now is moving forward. My phone rang again. This time it was my publicist. Maya, we have a situation. Someone leaked that you're going to be on the Forbes cover. Twitter is exploding. #QuantumMaya is trending worldwide. I looked around the park, noticing that the small crowd of curious onlookers had grown considerably larger. How bad is it? Not bad. Amazing. But you're going to need security. The Today Show wants you for Monday morning. The White House called to congratulate you. And MIT is preparing to offer you an honorary doctorate. I hung up and looked at my family. We should probably leave soon. This is turning into a media circus. Isabella stood up. Maya, before we go, I want to say something publicly. She raised her voice so nearby family members could hear. I owe my little sister an apology. We all do. We didn't listen when she tried to tell us about her work. We assumed success had to look a certain way. We were wrong. Carlos joined her. Maya isn't just successful, she's brilliant. She's going to change the world and we're lucky to be her family. The gathering of extended family members burst into applause. My cousins, aunts, uncles, and family friends were all looking at me with new respect and understanding. Dad approached and put his arm around my shoulder. Mija, your mother and I immigrated to this country so our children could have opportunities we never had. But we never imagined one of our daughters would become one of the most important innovators in the world. Poppy. No, let me finish. We're proud of all our children. Isabella built a successful business. Carlos became a respected lawyer. But you built something that's going to outlast all of us. Something that will help people for generations. As we gathered our things and prepared to leave the park, I noticed the family photo Roberto had taken. All 4 siblings, but this time with the real story visible. Not just successful children, but a family that had finally learned to see each other clearly. My phone buzzed with a text from my assistant. The Forbes website just posted a preview of tomorrow's cover story. Quantum Leap AI stock price jumped 40% in after-hours trading. I showed the message to Carlos, who whistled softly. Maya, you're not just a billionaire. You're a billionaire whose company is still growing. Growing fast, I agreed. We're expanding into medical AI next quarter. Then climate modeling. Then space applications. Isabella was packing up the picnic supplies, but I could see her mind working. Maya, Can I ask you something about business? Of course. How do you manage growth that fast without losing control of the company culture? It was a good question. The kind of question I'd expect from someone who understood business challenges. Very carefully, I said. We hire slowly, train extensively, and maintain clear principles about what kind of company we want to be. Success without values is just sophisticated failure. That's going in my next motivational speech to my real estate team, Isabella said with a smile. As we walked toward the parking lot, surrounded by family members who were still processing the day's revelations, my phone rang one more time. Ms. Torres? This is Anderson Cooper's office. We'd like to have you on Anderson Cooper 360 to discuss the implications of quantum AI for society. Would Thursday evening work? I looked at my family, my proud parents, my amazed siblings, my extended family who were all pulling out their phones to Google Quantum Leap AI and quantum computing. Thursday works, I said. But I'll need to bring my quantum processor prototype for the demonstration. After I hung up, Roberto raised his camera one more time. One last photo? He asked. The Torres family on the day everything changed. This time nobody questioned my place in the center. This time the photo captured not just successful siblings, but a family that had finally learned the difference between achievement and recognition, between substance and appearance, between being important and being seen as important. As we posed for that final shot, I thought about tomorrow's Forbes cover, next week's interviews, and the endless stream of opportunities that would follow. But mostly I thought about Monday morning when I'd return to my lab and continue working on the problems that really mattered. Because that's what success actually looks like. Not the photo but the work that makes the photo possible. The camera clicked, capturing the moment when my family finally saw me for who I'd always been. Not the unsuccessful daughter who worked with computers, but the scientist who was quietly changing the world, one quantum calculation at a time. The marble floors of Anderson and Pierce law firm echoed with each step as I approached the conference room. Through the glass walls, I could already see them. My sister Diana in her designer suit, my brother Marcus leaning back in his chair with that familiar smirk, and their spouses sitting like loyal soldiers in a battle formation. The conference room door felt heavy as I pushed it open. The conversation stopped abruptly, replaced by a thick silence and 5 pairs of hostile eyes. What are you doing here? Diana's voice cut through the air. She stood up, her manicured hands pressed against the mahogany table. This is a private family matter. I adjusted my simple black blazer, feeling suddenly aware of how it paled in comparison to her Chanel suit. Dad's reading is in 10 minutes. I'm still his daughter, aren't I? Marcus let out a dramatic sigh. Come on, sis. We all know Dad cut you out years ago when you refused to join the family business. You chose to be a financial advisor, instead. He made air quotes with his fingers. If that's even what you really do. You don't deserve to be here, Diana added, her voice dripping with contempt. You abandoned the family. Walked away from everything Dad built. Now you want to share. I took a seat at the far end of the table, placing my worn briefcase carefully beside me. The lawyer would be here any minute and I needed to stay calm. Years of preparation had led to this moment. I'm not here for what you think, I said quietly. Diana's husband James, a banking executive with more ambition than ethics, scoffed. Then why are you here? To see how much you lost by betraying your father's wishes. The memories flooded back, Dad's ultimatum 5 years ago, the screaming matches, the threats. Join the company or you're dead to me. He never understood that I saw the rot beneath the surface, the mounting debts, the questionable deals. Or maybe he did understand, and that's why he was so afraid of my choice to work in finance. Mr. Patterson, the family lawyer, entered the room with a thick folder. His eyes widened slightly when he saw me, but he quickly composed himself. Now that everyone's here, we can begin the reading of Harold Matthews' last will and testament. She shouldn't be here, Diana protested. Dad made it clear. Ms. Matthews has every right to be present, Mr. Patterson interrupted, shuffling his papers. Now shall we proceed? The next 30 minutes unfolded exactly as I'd expected. The family estate split between Diana and Marcus. The company shares divided equally between them. The vacation properties, the art collection, the cars, all distributed among the loyal children. My name wasn't mentioned once. Diana's triumphant smile grew with each bequest. Marcus kept shooting me smug glances. Their spouses sat there looking like cats who'd gotten into the cream. When Mr. Patterson finished reading, Diana stood up. Well, that's settled. You can leave now. She gestured toward the door. Unless you want to stay and watch us discuss our inheritance? I remained seated, my hand resting on my briefcase. Actually, there are some documents you all need to see first. Documents? Marcus laughed. What documents? The will is clear. With deliberate slowness, I opened my briefcase and removed a thick folder. You're right, Marcus. The will is very clear. But so are these. What is this nonsense? Diana snapped. I laid out the papers one by one. These are mortgage documents, bank loans, credit lines, all the debt that's been quietly piling up behind the family's facade of wealth. I looked directly at Diana. Did you know Dad remortgaged the beach house 3 times? Or that the company has been operating on borrowed money for the past 2 years? The color drained from their faces as I continued. And these, I pulled out another stack, are the documents showing who now owns all that debt. Mr. Patterson leaned forward, adjusting his glasses as he examined the papers. His pen slipped from his fingers, clattering onto the table. You see, I said, my voice steady, while you were all fighting over who'd get what, I was tracking every loan, every mortgage, every debt. And over the past 3 years I've been buying them. All of them. Diana's perfectly painted lips trembled. That's impossible. You're lying. Am I? I pushed the documents toward her. Check the signatures. Check the dates. Check the amounts. $12.4 million in total debt, now owned by Matthews Financial Holdings. My company. Marcus grabbed the papers, his hands shaking. This can't be legal. It's perfectly legal, I replied. I used my expertise as a financial advisor to build my own investment firm. Turns out all those clients you mocked me for serving helped me build quite a substantial portfolio. Enough to buy every bit of debt this family accumulated while trying to maintain their precious image. The room fell silent as the reality sank in. Everything they'd just inherited came with strings attached, strings that led directly back to me. I stood up, gathering my belongings. Don't worry. I'm not planning to call in these debts immediately. Unlike some people in this room, I understand the value of family. I headed toward the door, then paused. But I do expect us to have a very interesting conversation about the future of Matthews Industries. Shall we say, tomorrow morning? As I walked out, I heard Diana's muffled sob and Marcus's string of curses. Mr. Patterson was already reaching for his phone, probably to verify the document's authenticity. They'd spend the night realizing that while they were busy mocking my career choices and celebrating their inheritance, I'd been quietly building the leverage that would force them to face every mistake, every betrayal, and every consequence of their actions. The real estate they'd just inherited? Mortgaged to my company. The family business. Surviving on loans I now controlled. Their comfortable lives? Built on debt I owned. Tomorrow we'd begin discussing terms. But tonight I'd let them sit with the knowledge that their perfect inheritance was nothing but a house of cards. And I held every card. I settled into my office on the 47th floor of downtown's newest glass tower, watching the sunrise paint the city skyline in shades of gold. The view was a far cry from the dusty cubicle where I'd started my career 8 years ago. My executive assistant, Thomas, entered with a stack of folders. They've been calling all morning. Your sister's tried 6 times, your brother 4. And the law firm? Mr. Patterson has verified all documentation. The debt transfers are ironclad. He placed a fresh coffee on my desk. The financial statements you requested for Matthews Industries are here, along with the personal asset evaluations for both Diana and Marcus. I opened the first folder, though I already knew every number by heart. The journey to this moment had started 5 years ago, the day after Dad's ultimatum. Flashback. You'll regret this, Dad had shouted, his face red with anger. Walking away from your legacy for some entry-level financial job? I'd stood my ground. Someone needs to understand how money really works, Dad. Not just how to spend it. That night I'd pulled my first all-nighter, not crying as they'd probably assumed, but researching. Matthews Industries public records, property assessments, tax filings, everything I could access legally. What I found confirmed my suspicions. Our family's wealth was built on quicksand. The next 3 years were a careful dance of 60-hour workweeks, networking and strategic planning. While Diana and Marcus attended charity galas and posted vacation photos, I was building Matthew's financial holdings through careful investments and strategic partnerships. My first major client had been a tech startup that grew into a billion-dollar company. They trusted me with their IPO, and that success attracted more clients. Each win meant more capital, more connections, more opportunities. All while keeping my growing success hidden behind modest clothes and a deliberate low profile. Present day. The meeting is set for 10 a.m., Thomas reported. Your family's lawyers have requested to attend. I nodded. Good. They'll need to understand exactly how binding these agreements are. My phone buzzed. Another text from Diana. We need to talk before the meeting. Please. I set the phone aside and opened my laptop, pulling up a document I'd prepared months ago. Matthew's Industries restructuring proposal. The company needed saving whether my siblings admitted it or not. Dad's old-school management and their reckless spending had left it vulnerable. I had a plan to modernize operations, streamline costs, and expand into emerging markets. But first they needed to understand exactly how precarious their position was. Thomas cleared his throat. There's something else. Your brother's wife has been asking questions at their country club. Apparently, some of their regular lunch crowd includes your clients. I smiled. Of course they did. I'd carefully cultivated relationships with exactly the right people over the years. The same social circles my siblings used for showing off, I'd used for building my empire. Speaking of clients, Thomas continued, Mr. Davidson from the merger deal called. The papers are ready for signing whenever you're free. The Davidson deal. My latest acquisition that would push Matthew's financial holdings past the billion-dollar valuation mark. The irony wasn't lost on me that this milestone would come the same week I finally revealed myself to my family. I spent the next hour reviewing the documents for the meeting. Each page represented a piece of the puzzle I'd carefully assembled. The beach house mortgage, $2.3 million. The company's operating loans, $5.7 million. Diana's personal credit lines, $1.8 million. Marcus's investment debt, $2.6 million. Plus various smaller loans and obligations they'd accumulated trying to maintain their lifestyles. My phone buzzed again. Marcus this time, this is ridiculous. You can't do this to your own family. Family. The word they only seemed to remember when they needed something. I thought back to all the moments that had led here. Diana mocking my little office job at Mom's funeral 2 years ago. Marcus telling his friends I was just a banker at his wedding. The holiday dinners where they seated me at the kids' table. The family photos I was conveniently left out of. Each slight had only fueled my determination. While they were laughing, I was learning. While they were spending, I was investing. While they were burning bridges, I was building an empire. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. It was Sandra, my head of legal. Everything's in order, she reported, setting down another folder. I've reviewed all the debt contracts. They're ironclad. Your siblings' lawyers won't find any loopholes. And the restructuring proposal? Aggressive but fair. It gives them a path forward while ensuring you maintain control. She paused. Are you sure you want to do this? Once we start, there's no going back. I stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the city below. They need this wake-up call. The company needs new leadership. I'm not doing this for revenge. I'm doing it to save what Dad built, even if he never understood that. Sandra nodded. The conference room is ready. We've set up the presentation and have copies of all relevant documents. Perfect. I checked my watch. 9:30. Let's give them a few minutes to stew when they arrive. I want them to see exactly where they are, and who they're dealing with. As Sandra left, I opened my desk drawer and pulled out an old photo. Dad, Mom, Diana, Marcus, and me at the company's 30th anniversary. We were all smiling then, before money and power had twisted everything. My phone lit up with another message, this time from an unknown number. Diana's husband, whatever your price is, name it. This can all go away. They still didn't get it. This wasn't about money. It was about responsibility, about consequences, about finally bringing order to the chaos they'd created. Thomas appeared at my door. They're starting to arrive. Diana and her husband are already in the conference room. Marcus is in the lobby. I gathered my files and straightened my jacket, A custom-made piece that cost more than Diana's entire wardrobe, though its subtle elegance wouldn't show it. One more thing, Thomas added with a slight smile. The Forbes article about you is scheduled to go live at noon. Perfect timing. By then my siblings would understand exactly who they'd been underestimating all these years. I took one last look at the photo before returning it to the drawer. It's time. The walk to the conference room felt like a culmination of every step I'd taken over the past 5 years. Every late night, every careful investment, every quiet victory had led to this moment. Through the glass walls I could see Diana pacing, her designer heels clicking against the floor. Her husband sat stiffly in his chair, already sweating. Marcus had just entered, his usual swagger replaced by nervous energy. Their lawyers huddled at one end of the table, papers spread out before them. Mr. Patterson sat alone at the other end, looking older than I'd ever seen him. I paused outside the door, remembering Diana's words from yesterday, "You don't deserve to be here." How wrong she'd been. This wasn't just about deserving. This was about earning. And I'd earned every bit of what was about to happen. I nodded to Thomas. It was time to show my family exactly who I'd become while they weren't watching. The conference room fell silent as I entered. Gone was the contempt in their eyes, replaced by a mixture of fear and desperate calculation. My heels clicked against the marble floor, each step measured, deliberate. "Good morning," I said, taking my position at the head of the table. "I trust everyone's had time to review the documents?" Diana's husband James jumped in first. "This is absurd. You can't just dash." "Actually, I can." I nodded to Sandra, who began distributing new folders. "These documents outline exactly what I can do. But more importantly, they outline what I'm willing to do instead." Marcus flipped through the papers frantically. "What is this?" "A takeover." "A rescue," I corrected. Matthews Industries is 3 months away from insolvency. The company's debt-to-equity ratio is unsustainable. Client contracts are being lost to competitors. And the market value of our core businesses has dropped 40% in 2 years. Diana's face flushed. "That's not true. Dad would never dash. Dad hasn't been making the decisions for years." I cut in, pulling up the financial projections on the screen. "You do have. And here are the results." The graphs told a stark story: declining revenues, mounting debts, failed expansions. 5 years of mismanagement displayed in clean, brutal lines. But that's why we're here. I clicked to the next slide. Matthews Financial Holdings proposes a complete restructuring. Their lawyers leaned forward as I outlined the terms. A debt-for-equity swap that would give my company controlling interest. A new management structure with professional executives. A modernization plan for core businesses. And most importantly, a path for Diana and Marcus to retain meaningful roles if they proved themselves capable. "This is blackmail," Marcus sputtered. "This is business," I corrected. "The same business you mocked me for learning while you were busy playing executive." Just then phones around the table started buzzing. "Right on schedule. Rising star in finance. The secret billionaire transforming the industry," Diana read from her phone, her voice shaking. This is about you?" I let them read further. About my firm's success, our billion-dollar valuations, the string of successful ventures. 5 years of hidden achievements exposed in one comprehensive Forbes profile. All this time. Marcus looked up, his arrogance finally cracking. "While we thought you were just some financial advisor. I was building something real," I finished. "Not living off Dad's name. Not playing with inherited money. Building." Mr. Patterson cleared his throat. "The terms of this restructuring are quite generous, considering the circumstances. You're offering them a chance to stay involved." "Under my control," Diana spat. "Under competent leadership," I corrected. "You have 1 hour to decide. Either accept the restructuring or I'll call in all the debts immediately. The choice is yours." The next 50 minutes were a blur of urgent whispers, hurried phone calls, and frantic consultations with lawyers. I sat quietly, watching them come to terms with their new reality. Finally, Diana spoke. "Before we decide, I need to know, why didn't you tell us about your success?" I considered the question carefully. Would you have believed me? Or would you have just found new ways to mock my choices? The flash of shame on her face was answer enough. "We accept," Marcus said quietly. We don't have a choice, do we? You always had choices, I replied. You chose to dismiss me. You chose to mismanage Dad's company. You chose to live beyond your means. Now you're choosing to accept help, even if it's not on your terms. The next hour was signatures and legalities. With each page I watched their old lives slip away, the unchecked spending, the casual cruelty, the easy arrogance. As the lawyers packed up their briefcases I stood. The new management team starts Monday. I expect you both there, ready to learn, not pretend. And if we refuse? Diana asked, but the fight had left her voice. Then you'll find out exactly how difficult life can be without a safety net. I gathered my things. But I don't think you'll refuse. Because deep down you know this company needs saving. And for once in your lives, you'll have to earn your place in it. They filed out slowly, shoulders slumped, designer labels suddenly looking more like costumes than armor. Only Mr. Patterson remained. Your father, he said quietly, would be proud. Not of them. Of you. I shook my head. Dad never understood that protecting his legacy meant changing it. But he will. I handed him one final document. Once the restructuring is complete, I'm renaming the company. Matthews Financial Group. A new beginning. Later that evening I stood at my office window watching the city lights flicker on. My phone had been quiet for hours. No more desperate calls or angry texts. Thomas appeared with a glass of champagne. Congratulations, Ms. Matthews. Or should I say Tho Matthews? I took the glass, thinking about the long road ahead. Saving the company wouldn't be easy. Teaching my siblings real business would be even harder. But as I looked at my reflection in the window, no longer the dismissed younger sister but the leader I'd worked to become, I knew one thing. Every moment of underestimation, every dismissive comment, every family dinner spent at the kids' table had led to this. They'd thought I was settling for less by choosing finance over the family business. They never understood I was actually choosing more, choosing to earn my success rather than inherit it. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from Diana. I'm sorry. For everything. Can we talk tomorrow? About the company. About learning. I smiled, typing back a simple response. My office. 9 a.m. Don't be late. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's reconstruction. Building something stronger from the ashes of what was broken. And as I raised my glass to the city skyline, I knew this was just the beginning. The Anderson family reunion was always a showcase of competitive success, held at my uncle's sprawling estate in the Hamptons. This year was no different. Luxury cars lined the circular driveway like a high-end dealership, and designer labels flickered in the summer sun like warning signs. I parked my modest Toyota Camry between my cousin Blake's Ferrari and my sister Jessica's Mercedes. The contrast wasn't lost on me, but then again that was the point. Let them see exactly what they expected to see. Emily. My mother's voice carried across the manicured lawn, a mixture of obligation and disappointment. You made it. And you're wearing that. I smoothed down my simple blue dress, a piece that looked Target clearance but was actually hand-tailored Italian silk. Hello, Mom. The backyard was a sea of calculated success. Doctors, lawyers, investment bankers. The Andersons had produced a generation of respectable professionals. And then there was me, the black sheep who'd walked away from medical school to open what they called my little experiment in retail. Still playing shopkeeper? Blake smirked, swirling his champagne. He was an investment banker now, or at least that's what his Instagram bio claimed. Must be nice, such a simple life. Jessica, now a corporate lawyer, joined him. God, Em, at least tell me you've hired someone to watch the store while you're here. Wouldn't want to miss out on those crucial scented candle sales. They laughed, that practiced sound of people who thought they were better than they were. If they'd bothered to actually visit my store, they would have noticed it wasn't just any boutique. Sage and Stone had started as a small shop 5 years ago, yes. But now it was the testing ground for what had become Intuitive Retail Solutions IRS. My real company. The small shop was where I pioneered the automated retail technology that was about to revolutionize the entire industry. Every customer interaction, every purchase pattern, every subtle consumer behavior was analyzed by my proprietary AI system. The results? A predictive retail model that major corporations were desperately trying to replicate. But my family didn't know that. They didn't know about the patents, the silent acquisitions, or the deals I'd been negotiating for the past year. They definitely didn't know about tomorrow's announcement, the one that would turn their carefully constructed hierarchy upside down. "Emily," my Uncle Robert boomed, "surprised you could afford the trip up. Times must be good in the scented candle business." I took a sip of water, letting his condescension wash over me. Uncle Robert, the family patriarch since my father passed, had been particularly vocal about my waste of potential. He'd called my decision to leave medical school a temporary insanity that would sort itself out when reality hits. Reality was about to hit, all right, just not the way he expected. "Business is steady," I said quietly. "How's the hospital administration treating you?" He puffed up immediately. "Just got appointed to the board of directors at Metropolitan. We're implementing a new retail pharmacy system across all locations. Something you wouldn't understand, of course. Real business, big numbers." I bit back a smile. Metropolitan was one of the hospital groups bidding for my technology. They just didn't know it was mine. Like every other major retailer and healthcare provider, they'd been negotiating with IRS through layers of corporate anonymity. Speaking of business, Blake chimed in. "Did anyone see the rumors about tomorrow's big tech announcement? Some companies supposedly revolutionizing retail automation. Dad's firm is trying to get in on the IPO." Now that got my attention. Blake's father, Uncle Peter, ran one of the largest investment firms in the city. They'd been aggressively pursuing information about IRS for months, trying to identify the founders before the company went public. "Heard it's worth billions," Jessica added. "Unlike some people's little shops." The TV inside was playing CNBC, muted but visible through the patio doors. Tomorrow that same channel would announce the largest retail technology acquisition in history. My company IRS wasn't going public. We were buying out our biggest competitor, effectively controlling 70% of the automated retail market. "How much did your shop make last year, Emily?" Uncle Robert asked, not bothering to hide his disdain. "Enough to cover rent at least?" I thought about the acquisition papers in my hotel safe, the ones with tomorrow's date and a lot of zeros. "It covers the essentials. You know," my mother started, that familiar tone of intervention creeping in. "Dr. Matthews at Metropolitan is always looking for research assistants. It's not too late to get back on track." "Thanks, Mom, but I'm happy where I am." "Happy?" Blake scoffed. "Running a glorified gift shop? Come on, Emily. Even you can't be that delusional." I checked my phone discreetly. An email from my CEO account waited. "Final contracts signed. Press embargo lifts at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time." "Sometimes," I said carefully, "success doesn't look the way people expect it to." "Oh please," Jessica rolled her eyes. "Spare us the small business owner philosophy. Some of us have real careers to discuss." The afternoon wore on, a parade of thinly veiled insults and competitive accomplishments. I sat quietly, letting them assume my silence was shame rather than restraint. Let them have their moment. Tomorrow would be interesting enough. As the sun began to set, Uncle Robert gathered everyone for the traditional family photo. "Emily," he called, "you can stand in the back. Behind Blake and Jessica. They're wearing the proper attire." I took my place, the supposed failure in a sea of success. My phone buzzed again. Another email from my corporate account. "NYSE opening bell ceremony confirmed for Monday. Car will pick you up at 8 a.m. "Smile," the photographer called. I did smile, but not for the camera. I smiled because in less than 12 hours, every assumption they'd made about me would shatter like the champagne glasses they'd drop when the news hit. The black sheep was about to become the wolf in sheep's clothing. And family reunions would never be the same. I woke up in my suite at the Four Seasons. Not that my family knew I wasn't staying at the Holiday Inn they'd recommended, given my budget. The morning sun was just breaking over Manhattan, and my phone was already buzzing with secure messages from my executive team. "Market opens in 3 hours. Press release finalized. CNBC interview confirmed for 10 a.m. I ordered breakfast to my room, French pressed coffee and avocado toast that cost more than what my family thought I made in a day. The TV was already tuned to CNBC, where financial analysts were speculating about today's major market announcement. Sources say this could be the biggest retail tech acquisition of the decade, one analyst reported. But the real story is the mysterious CEO behind IRS. No one seems to know who's really running the company. I smiled, taking a sip of coffee. They'd know soon enough. My phone rang. It was Jessica. "Hey Em, we're all having breakfast at Uncle Robert's. Mom says you should come. Blake's going to tell us about his new partnership position." "I'll have to pass," I said, watching my company's confidential logo flash across the TV screen. "I have a meeting." "A meeting?" She laughed. "What, did someone order too many lavender candles?" "Something like that. Enjoy breakfast." I hung up just as my actual executive assistant called. "Ms. Anderson, your car is ready. The legal team is waiting at the office." I changed into a Chanel suit I'd been saving for today, classic black with subtle power shoulders. No more hidden luxury. No more playing small. The IRS headquarters occupied the top 10 floors of a gleaming tower in downtown Manhattan. As I walked through the lobby, employees nodded respectfully. Here I wasn't the family disappointment. I was the visionary who'd built a retail empire from a single little shop. Everyone's gathered in the main conference room, my CFO Michael reported as we rode the private elevator. Including representatives from tech retail. Tech retail, our biggest competitor, or rather our newest acquisition. Their CEO had fought the takeover for months until he realized we'd already secured majority shareholder support. The conference room was packed with executives, lawyers, and PR teams. On the wall, multiple screens showed various news channels, all waiting for the 9 a.m. announcement. "Time check?" I asked. 20 minutes to market open, Michael replied. "Your family still doesn't know?" I shook my head, thinking of them all gathered at Uncle Robert's, probably taking turns critiquing my life choices. "They're about to." At exactly 8:55 a.m., my phone started exploding with texts. The first was from Blake. "Turn on CNBC now. Someone's buying tech retail. Dad's firm is going crazy trying to figure out who's behind it." Then from Jessica, "Are you seeing this? Blake says it's a huge deal." And finally from Uncle Robert, "Watching business news. Shame you never understood real business, Emily. This is what success looks like." I turned to the screens just as CNBC's breaking news alert flashed. Breaking. Intuitive Retail Solutions IRS. To acquire tech retail in historic $2 billion deal. Market stunned by retail tech's biggest merger. The room erupted in controlled excitement. Years of work, of hiding, of building in silence, all leading to this moment. Then came the part I'd been waiting for. And in a surprising revelation, the anchor continued, "IRSO Emily Anderson will be ringing the opening bell this morning." Anderson, known for founding the innovative Sage and Stone retail chain, has been secretly building what analysts are calling the most sophisticated retail technology company in the market. My phone went dead silent for exactly 30 seconds. Then it exploded. "Jessica, what the actual hell? Blake, this has to be a mistake. A different Emily Anderson." "Mom, Emily? Call me right now." "Uncle Robert, is this some kind of joke?" The messages kept coming, but I had more important things to focus on. The market was opening and I had an empire to run. "Ms. Anderson," my PR director called. "CNBC is ready for your live interview." I straightened my jacket and faced the camera they'd set up in our office. The red light blinked on and I smiled, not the modest, apologetic smile I'd worn at family gatherings, but the confident smile of a CEO who'd just changed the industry. "Ms. Anderson," the interviewer began, "you've managed to keep IRS's ownership private until now. Why reveal yourself today?" "Because success speaks for itself," I replied smoothly. "We've built something revolutionary and it's time for the market to know who's behind it. Your background is interesting. You left medical school to open a retail store. Many would see that as stepping down. Was this always the plan?" I thought of all the family dinners where they'd questioned that decision. "Innovation doesn't always follow the expected path," I said. "Sometimes the best view of an industry's future comes from its foundation." Sage and Stone wasn't just a store. It was a laboratory. My phone kept buzzing. "Uncle Peter now. My firm has been trying to get a meeting with IRS for months. Why didn't you say anything?" I turned it off. They could wait. Because right now, on every financial news channel, in every trading room, and yes, in Uncle Robert's breakfast room, they were all watching me prove them wrong. By noon, my little shop, was the talk of Wall Street. IRS stock had surged 40% on the acquisition news, adding another billion to our market cap. My personal net worth, previously hidden through various holding companies, was now public knowledge, splashed across Bloomberg terminals and financial websites. Emily Anderson, the retail revolutionary worth $4.3 billion. I was in my office reviewing integration plans when my assistant interrupted. Ms. Anderson, your family is in the lobby. All of them. Of course they were. How many? I asked, not looking up from my papers. 8. Your mother, sister, both uncles, Blake and some others. They're quite insistent. I checked the time. The market would close in 3 hours and I had a board meeting at 4. Give me 2 minutes, then send them up. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows, taking in the view of Manhattan that my office afforded. Behind me, the TV silently played financial news, my face appearing every few minutes alongside headlines about the acquisition. The elevator dinged. Holy shit, I heard Blake whisper as they entered. This is real business. I finished for him, turning around. Please come in. They filed into my office like tourists in a museum, eyes darting from the expensive art to the wall of awards to the multiple screens displaying real-time market data. Emily, my mother started, her voice uncertain. We don't understand. That's been the theme for about 5 years now, hasn't it? I sat down behind my desk, a hand-carved piece that cost more than Blake's Ferrari. Why didn't you tell us? Jessica demanded. All this time you let us think. Let you think what? I cut her off. That I was a failure. That was your assumption, not my deception. Uncle Robert stepped forward, his usual confidence noticeably shaken. But the shop, the small apartment, that old Toyota, were exactly what you expected to see, I said calmly. You never asked about the patents. Never questioned why major retailers suddenly changed their automation systems. Never wondered why your hospital board was so desperate to implement my technology. By God, Uncle Peter breathed. The Metropolitan contract. That was you. I nodded. Along with 50 other major retail and healthcare chains. That little shop you mocked? It was the testing ground for everything we built here. Blake collapsed into one of the guest chairs, looking shell-shocked. Yesterday, when I was talking about the IPO, your firm was trying to get meetings with my company, I finished. I know. We turned them down. Multiple times. But why? My mother asked. Why keep it secret from us? I stood up, walking around to lean against the front of my desk. Because you needed to show me who you really were. All of you. Every dismissive comment, every condescending suggestion, every time you called my work small or insignificant, you showed me exactly why I couldn't trust you with the truth. The silence that followed was deafening. Ms. Anderson, my assistant's voice came through the intercom. The integration team is ready for you, and NASDAQ called about tomorrow's market opening. Thank you, Sarah. I'll be right there. I straightened up, smoothing my jacket. I have a company to run. Several, actually. Emily, wait. Jessica stepped forward. We're family. You can't just. Family. I laughed softly. Yesterday you wouldn't even let me stand next to you in the photos. Now you want to claim me. We were wrong, Uncle Robert said quietly, probably the first time those words had ever left his mouth. Yes, you were. I picked up a folder from my desk. And now, if you'll excuse me, I have a board meeting. Sarah will show you out. What about Sunday dinners? My mother asked weakly. The family gatherings? I paused at the private elevator doors. I'll still come. But not as the Emily you thought you knew. From now on you get the real me, CEO, innovator, and yes, still that shopkeeper you loved to mock. And what about my firm? Uncle Peter tried. Now that we know who you are, maybe we could work together? I smiled. Your firm's latest valuation is less than what my company made in profit last quarter. But feel free to submit a proposal through proper channels. Like everyone else. The elevator doors opened. Oh, and Blake. I added. About that simple life comment? Running a multi-billion-dollar company is many things, but simple isn't one of them. Good luck with that partnership position though. I hear middle management can be quite straightforward. As the elevator descended, I could see my reflection in its polished doors. No more hiding. No more diminishing. This was who I'd been all along. They just never bothered to look past their own assumptions. My phone buzzed with a text from my PR team. Forbes cover confirmed. Interview next week. I smiled, thinking of all the family members who proudly displayed their local business magazine features. Wonder how they'd feel about seeing their little shopkeeper on the cover of Forbes? The board meeting went smoothly. We outlined the integration plan for tech retail, approved 3 new acquisitions and greenlit the expansion into international markets. By the time the market closed, IRS had become the most talked about company in retail tech. That evening, as I sat in my real home, a penthouse overlooking Central Park, I received one last text from my mother. I didn't see you. All these years I didn't really see you. I'm sorry. I looked at the message for a long time before replying. You saw what you wanted to see. But now you'll see exactly who I am. Sunday dinner is at my place this week. I'll send a car. Because sometimes success isn't just about proving others wrong. It's about finally, unapologetically being right. And letting them choke on the reality they never thought possible. Have you tried turning it off and on again? I asked, trying to keep my voice level as my sister Amanda's face filled my laptop screen during our video call. Don't patronize me, she snapped, her perfectly styled hair bouncing as she shook her head. I'm a senior partner at Maxwell & Brooks. I don't have time for basic IT jokes. Just fix it remotely or whatever it is you do. I glanced at my other monitor, where lines of code for my company's new AI security protocols scrolled past. The project was worth billions, but to Amanda I was still the little sister who was good with computers. I can't just fix it remotely without knowing what's wrong, I explained for what felt like the 100th time. Ugh, fine. She rolled her eyes. The merger documents for the Wilson Tech acquisition are encrypted and we can't access them. Happy now, IT girl? This is literally the biggest deal our firm has handled, and I need to review these documents before tomorrow's meeting. I froze. Wilson Tech. Of course. Send me the file, I said, already knowing what I'd find. After all, I'd designed the encryption protocol myself. Finally. See, was that so hard? Amanda's voice dripped with condescension. I'll have my assistant send it over. Just do your little computer thing and fix it. 10 minutes later, I was staring at the encrypted files. The same files I'd secured personally when Wilson Tech began acquisition talks with Phoenix Global, my company. Done, I said, sending back the decrypted documents. But Amanda. Great, you're a lifesaver. Even if you were just playing with computers all day. Got to go, big meeting to prep for. She hung up before I could finish. I leaned back in my chair in my private office on the top floor of Phoenix Tower. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Seattle's skyline glittered in the afternoon sun. On my desk sat the latest issue of Forbes, my face on the cover, Alex Chin, the billion-dollar code queen. My phone buzzed, a message from our legal team. Ms. Chin, final merger documents prepared for tomorrow's meeting with Maxwell & Brooks. Will you be signing as CEO, or should we have the board chair present? I smiled, thinking about tomorrow's meeting. About Amanda walking into that conference room, expecting to face Wilson Tech's leadership. Instead, she'd find her little sister. Not as an IT support person, but as the CEO of Phoenix Global, the tech conglomerate worth $50 billion that was acquiring Wilson Tech. For 10 years, I'd let her believe I was just a low-level IT worker. Through every family gathering, every condescending comment, every time she demanded I fix her computer like I was her personal tech support. Remember that time you tried to start a company in college? She'd laughed at last Christmas. Thank God you settled for a steady IT job instead. What she didn't know was that little company had grown into Phoenix Global, one of the largest tech conglomerates in the world. While she climbed the ladder at her law firm, I'd built an empire. But I kept it quiet, using my Chinese name Xiaoying Chen in all business dealings. Only tomorrow in that conference room would everything connect. I picked up my phone to text our legal team. I'll be signing. And please make sure Ms. Amanda Brooks from Maxwell & Brooks handles the final review personally. My assistant knocked on my door. Ms. Chin? The board is ready for the pre-merger briefing. I stood, straightening my Armani suit. Coming. I paused at my desk, looking at the family photo from last Thanksgiving. Amanda stood in the center, commanding attention as always, while I lingered at the edge, deliberately unremarkable in my simple sweater and jeans. Tomorrow everything would change. Tomorrow my sister would learn that her IT girl was actually the CEO she'd been desperately trying to impress for months. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving people wrong immediately. It's waiting for the perfect moment to show them just how wrong they've been all along. The morning of the merger meeting, I arrived at Phoenix Tower at 6 a.m., 3 hours before the scheduled meeting. The early morning fog wrapped around the building's glass exterior, creating an almost mythical atmosphere. My executive assistant, Maria, met me in my office with a stack of documents and my usual morning green tea. "Your sister called the office 4 times last night," she said, hiding a smile. "She wanted to speak directly with CEO Chin about some concerns in the merger documents. And I told her, as instructed, that Ms. Chin only communicates through proper channels during active negotiations." Maria paused. She was not pleased. I could imagine. Amanda had always hated not being the most important person in any room. Has she figured it out? I asked, scanning through my emails. Not even close. She asked if I could patch her through to our IT department, said her sister works here and might be able to help expedite things. I couldn't help but laugh. 10 years of letting people underestimate me had become almost an art form. While Amanda boasted about her law firm partnership at family gatherings, I'd built Phoenix Global from a startup in my garage into a tech empire. Our AI security systems protected 80% of Fortune 500 companies. Our quantum computing division had revolutionized data processing. But to my family, I was still just good with computers. At 8:30 a.m. Maria returned. "Maxwell and Brooks representatives are in the building. Your sister is apparently lecturing their junior associates about proper merger protocol in the lobby." I pulled up the security feed on my tablet. There was Amanda, in her designer suit, holding court among a group of nervous-looking young lawyers. Even through the silent video feed, I could read her lips. "Remember, we're meeting Phoenix Global soon. This is the biggest tech acquisition of the year. Don't embarrass me. Let's make them wait in the Jade conference room," I said. "I'll be monitoring from here until 9. The Jade conference room was specifically designed to intimidate. 60 floors up, with walls of smart glass that could turn transparent to reveal the dizzying height at the touch of a button. The table was a single piece of polished jade, worth more than Amanda's annual salary. Through the security feeds, I watched as they were escorted in. Amanda immediately took the power position at the table, directly opposite where the CEO would sit. Classic Amanda, always positioning herself as the equal of anyone she met. At 8:55 I stood, straightening my Tom Ford suit. Time to go be a CEO. Maria handed me a folder. The final merger documents. And she hesitated. "Your sister's performance reviews from Maxwell and Brooks." I raised an eyebrow. "She's been taking credit for her junior associates' work," Maria explained. 3 of them complained last month. I thought you should know. That was Amanda, always building herself up by pushing others down. Just like she'd done to me all these years. The walk to the conference room took exactly 3 minutes. Through the frosted glass, I could hear Amanda's voice. "The CEO is late. Typical tech people, no respect for proper business protocol." I checked my watch. 8:59 a.m. The doors opened exactly at 9. I walked in, followed by my executive team. Amanda was mid-sentence, her back to the door, still holding court. "Honestly, these tech CEOs think they're so important just because Just because what, Amanda?" My voice stopped her cold. She turned slowly, her face already arranged in the condescending smile she reserved for people she thought were beneath her. Then our eyes met. The smile died. Her face went through a series of expressions. Confusion, disbelief, shock, horror. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. "Alex," she finally managed to whisper. I smiled professionally, taking my seat across from her. "That's Miss Chin in this room, Ms. Brooks. Shall we begin?" The sound of her expensive fountain pen clattering to the jade table echoed in the sudden silence. The next 30 minutes were deliciously uncomfortable. Amanda sat frozen as I led the meeting, presenting Phoenix Global's vision for the merged companies, outlining our expansion plans, and detailing the technical innovations we'd implement. Every time I used a complex technical term, her face twitched. Each time I referenced a billion-dollar project, her complexion paled slightly more. By the time I pulled up our company's global operations statistics on the room's panoramic screens, she looked like she might faint. "Now," I said, turning to the smart glass walls and tapping a control. The glass turned transparent, revealing the vertigo-inducing view of the city below. Let's discuss the concerning issues we've found in Maxwell and Brooks' handling of this merger. Amanda's head snapped up. Concerning issues? I pulled out a tablet. Yes. For instance, the credit attribution on the preliminary documentation. I scrolled through the files. According to these documents, you personally handled the technical review of our AI architecture. She swallowed hard. I supervised the team that. Interesting. I pulled up more documents. Because according to these internal communications, it was actually 3 of your junior associates who did that work. Associates who, coincidentally, filed complaints about credit theft last month. The other lawyers from her firm shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Amanda's face turned scarlet. That's an internal matter, she stammered. Not anymore. I leaned forward. You see, Phoenix Global has a very strict ethical code. We believe in giving credit where it's due. In fact, I smiled, that's why I kept my position here quiet for so long. I wanted to succeed on merit, not family connections. Understanding finally dawned in her eyes. All these years. She whispered. When you said you worked in tech. I built this company from nothing, I confirmed. While you were mocking me for playing with computers, I was revolutionizing cybersecurity. While you were demanding I fix your laptop like your personal IT support, I was developing the AI systems that protect most of the world's financial institutions. The room was silent except for the soft hum of the environmental controls. The merger can still proceed, I continued professionally. However, there will be conditions. First, full credit for the technical review will be reassigned to the junior associates who actually performed it. Second, Maxwell and Brooks will implement a comprehensive ethical oversight program. And third, I paused, meeting her eyes, you personally will be recused from any future dealings with Phoenix Global. You can't do that, she burst out. I'm the senior partner handling this merger. Actually, I tapped my tablet and new documents appeared on everyone's screens. As CEO of the acquiring company I can. And I am. One of her fellow partners cleared his throat. Amanda, perhaps we should. No. She stood up, her carefully maintained composure cracking. This is ridiculous. You're my little sister. You fix computers. You can't just. I stood as well, my voice cutting through her protest like a laser through code. Ms. Brooks, this meeting room has recorded every word you've just said. Would you like to continue demonstrating why you're being recused from this merger? She collapsed back into her chair, finally silent. Now, I turned to her colleagues. Shall we proceed with the actual merger discussion? With the properly credited team members. 3 hours later, the meeting concluded. The merger would proceed, but with Amanda's junior associates receiving their due recognition. As everyone filed out, I called out, Ms. Brooks? A moment. She turned back, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Next time you need IT support, I said quietly, put in a ticket through the proper channels. I believe our help desk operates more efficiently than your sister's private line. That evening, as I sat in my office watching the sunset paint the city gold, Maria brought in a stack of messages from my family. Mom was shocked, Dad was proud, and Amanda had sent a single text. I'm sorry. For everything. Not just today. For all of it. I looked at my reflection in the window, remembering all the times I'd let her belittle me, all the times I'd fixed her computer without revealing who I really was. Success wasn't about proving her wrong. It was about proving myself right. I picked up my phone and typed, next family dinner is at my place. Top floor, Phoenix Tower. Dress appropriately. And Amanda, bring your junior associates. It's time they met the family. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just showing people who you really are. It's showing them who they could be if they stopped underestimating others. As night fell over the city, I smiled, thinking about how life had come full circle. My sister had always told me to think bigger, to be more ambitious. She just never expected I'd end up bigger than her dreams. I never imagined that my passion for art would lead to owning one of the largest private collections in New York. But watching my family's faces transform from mockery to shock made every struggle worth it. Before I tell you how my carefully hidden success was revealed in the most dramatic way, Let me know in the comments if you've ever had your dreams dismissed by family. Hit that like button if you've ever been called a waste of potential. This story is for you. My name is Sophia Bennett, and at 29, I lived what appeared to be two completely different lives. To my family, I was the disappointing daughter who wasted her business degree on a struggling art career. In reality, I was the founder of Bennett Global Arts, a multi-million-dollar art investment firm that quietly dominated the international market. Growing up in Boston's affluent Beacon Hill, I was always the misfit in our family of practical achievers. My father, William Bennett, built his reputation as a cutthroat corporate lawyer. My mother, Catherine, ran a successful investment banking firm. My older brother James followed perfectly in their footsteps, graduating from Harvard Law with honors. Then there was me, the child who spent hours sketching in her room instead of networking at country club events. "Art won't pay the bills, Sophia," became my father's constant refrain. Even when I won national art competitions in high school, his response was always the same. "That's nice, dear, but when are you going to focus on something serious?" My mother's approach was more subtle but equally dismissive. "Darling, art can be a lovely hobby," she'd say, emphasizing the word hobby, while sliding business school applications across the dinner table. "But you need a real career." The only person who ever truly supported my passion was my grandfather, Theodore Bennett. A self-made man who built his fortune through smart investments, he saw something in me that my parents missed. "You have an eye, little one," he'd say during our secret visits to galleries and museums. "Not just for art but for value. That's a rare combination." While my family thought Grandpa Theo was just indulging my childish interests, he was actually teaching me everything about art as an investment. By 16, I could spot emerging trends in the market. By 18, I could estimate a painting's potential value better than most professional appraisers. I agreed to attend business school to appease my parents, but not at Harvard like they wanted. Instead, I chose NYU, where I could double major in business and art history. My father nearly had an aneurysm. "If you're determined to throw away your potential," he declared, "you can do it without our money." That was fine by me. What they didn't know was that Grandpa Theo had secretly set up a trust fund for me years ago, specifically earmarked for my education and future art investments. "Your parents see the world in black and white," he told me before I left for college. "You see it in color. Don't let them dim your vision." During college, I worked as an assistant at various galleries, learning the industry from the inside out. My business classes taught me about market analysis and investment strategies, while my art history studies deepened my understanding of value beyond mere dollars and cents. Everything changed during my junior year when Grandpa Theo passed away. To everyone's surprise, he left me his entire art collection and a significant portion of his investment portfolio. The will came with a letter that changed my life. "Dearest Sophia, while others saw a dreamer, I saw an investor with an artist's soul. The collection is yours, along with $50 million in seed capital. Build something extraordinary, but do it quietly. Sometimes the best power is invisible. Love, Grandpa Theo." My parents were furious about the inheritance, especially when I refused to sell the collection and invest in something sensible. What they didn't know was that I was already using the seed money to build Bennett Global Arts, though the company was registered under a complex network of holding corporations that couldn't be traced back to me. Over the next 5 years, I built my empire in complete secrecy. To my family, I was just another struggling artist in New York, occasionally selling pieces for barely enough to get by. In reality, I was becoming one of the most influential figures in the international art market. My company didn't just buy art. We discovered talent, shaped trends, and controlled major portions of the market through strategic investments and acquisitions. All while I maintained the perfect cover of the family disappointment. The deception might have continued indefinitely if my brother James hadn't decided to prove his superiority once and for all. It started with an invitation I never expected. "The Morrison Gallery is hosting a major exhibition," he announced during one of his condescending phone calls. "I've arranged for the family to attend opening night. Time to see what real success looks like, little sister." What James didn't know was that I owned the Morrison Gallery through one of my shell corporations. The exhibition he was so excited about. I had personally selected every piece. "Sounds interesting," I said mildly, already planning how this revelation would play out. "When is it?" "Next Friday. Try to dress appropriately for once. My clients will be there." I smiled as I hung up, looking around my penthouse office with its view of Central Park. The walls were lined with pieces worth more than James's annual salary. Perhaps it was finally time to show my family exactly what wasting time with art really meant. The week leading up to the exhibition was a careful dance of preparation. I worked with Marcus Chin, my gallery director and one of the few people who knew my true identity, to ensure everything would be perfect for the upcoming revelation. "Are you sure about this?" Marcus asked as we reviewed the final arrangements. "Once they know, everything changes." "It's time," I replied, thinking of all the dismissive comments and superior smirks I'd endured. "Let's show them what real success looks like." The night of the exhibition arrived and I dressed for both of my roles, the struggling artist and the secret power player. My outfit was expensive but subtle, the kind of understated luxury that most people would miss but true connoisseurs would recognize instantly. I arrived early, watching from a quiet corner as New York's elite filtered into my gallery. Art critics, collectors, and socialites mingled beneath the soaring ceilings I'd had renovated last year. Then my family arrived. James entered first, playing the role of sophisticated art patron with practiced ease. Our parents followed, looking perfectly polished and utterly out of place among the genuine art enthusiasts. None of them noticed me watching from the shadows. "Quite an impressive collection," James announced loudly to anyone who would listen. "My firm represents several serious collectors who might be interested." If he only knew that I'd already privately sold most of the pieces to my regular clients, leaving just enough for tonight's public auction to maintain appearances. I moved closer, letting them catch sight of me. Mom's face immediately fell into its usual mask of disappointed concern. "Sophia, darling," she said, air-kissing my cheek. "We didn't expect to see you here. Are you working the event?" Before I could respond, James jumped in with his trademark condescension. "Still wasting time with art, sis? You know, it's not too late to join a real business. My firm's always looking for, well, support staff." I smiled, knowing what was about to happen. "Actually, I'm quite happy with my career choices." "What career?" Dad scoffed. "Selling the occasional painting barely counts as employment." Just then Marcus stepped up to the podium right on schedule. The first act of the evening was about to begin, and my family had no idea they were about to become part of the show. The gallery lights dimmed slightly as Marcus tapped the microphone, drawing everyone's attention. My family shifted away from me, clearly hoping to distance themselves from their embarrassing relative during the formal proceedings. "Good evening, distinguished guests," Marcus began, his voice carrying across the hushed gallery. "Welcome to the Morrison Gallery's most ambitious exhibition to date, Hidden Perspectives, the Future of Contemporary Art." I watched my brother straighten his tie, probably planning how to network during the reception. If he only knew who really owned the room he was trying to conquer. "Tonight's collection," Marcus continued, "represents a carefully curated selection of works valued at over $300 million, bringing together both established masters and emerging talents." My father's eyebrows rose at the number. I could practically see him calculating potential legal fees from wealthy art collectors. But before we begin the auction, I have a unique privilege. Tonight, we're honored to have with us the visionary behind not only this exhibition but the entire Morrison Gallery's transformation over the past 3 years. A murmur of interest rippled through the crowd. The Morrison Gallery's mysterious owner had been the subject of intense speculation in the art world, especially after our string of successful international exhibitions and market-making acquisitions. James leaned toward our mother, whispering just loud enough for me to hear. "Probably some old money collector with more cash than sense. Not like Sophia's little paintings." I bit back a smile, remembering the piece of mine that had sold for $2.3 million last month. Through a pseudonym, of course. Marcus's voice cut through the whispers. "While this person typically prefers to remain anonymous, tonight marks a special occasion. Please welcome the owner of the Morrison Gallery and founder of Bennett Global Arts." My family's heads snapped up at our surname, confusion evident on their faces. "Miss Sophia Bennett." The silence that followed was absolute. I stepped forward into the spotlight, wearing success as comfortably as my designer dress. My mother's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, saved only by a quick-moving waiter. "Thank you, Marcus," I said, taking the podium. As many of you know, the art world thrives on both visible beauty and hidden value. Tonight I'm pleased to share both. The next 30 minutes were a masterclass in professional revenge. I guided the audience through the exhibition, discussing each piece with the expertise of both an artist and a market maker. Every analysis demonstrated not just artistic understanding but deep financial acumen. This piece, I said, gesturing to a large abstract canvas, represents not only an emerging aesthetic but an investment opportunity. Similar works by this artist have appreciated 300% in the past 18 months. Art critics nodded appreciatively while investors scribbled notes. My father, the man who had dismissed art as financially worthless, stood frozen as I casually discussed million-dollar transactions. Of course, I continued, Bennett Global Arts has been quietly tracking these trends through our 17 international galleries and private consulting services. James's face had turned an interesting shade of pale. His own client list, which he'd bragged about at every family dinner, suddenly seemed insignificant compared to the collectors I worked with. During a brief intermission, my mother managed to corner me near a sculpture installation. How? She began, then collected herself. How long have you been running a multi-million-dollar art investment firm? I finished for her. Remember when you said I was wasting my business degree? I was actually combining it with my hobby to build something extraordinary. But the struggling artist act. My father interjected, joining us. The small apartment, the occasional sales. A cover, I explained. One you were all too ready to believe. My real office overlooks Central Park. The small apartment you visited? Just a meeting space for clients who appreciate discretion. I led them to a private viewing room, where Marcus had prepared a comprehensive presentation of my company's holdings. The screens displayed a global map dotted with Bennett Global Arts properties. Galleries, auction houses, conservation studios, and consulting offices. Current company valuation, $1.2 billion, I said casually, watching their expressions. It turns out art does pay the bills, Dad. Quite well, actually. James, who had followed us in, was frantically Googling on his phone. This is impossible, he muttered. I would have heard. Would you? I asked. The art world runs on discretion and relationships. Two things you never bothered to understand while you were mocking my career choice. I pulled up our client list, names that made James's legal contacts look like small-town practitioners. We handle private acquisitions for museums, manage collections for royal families, and shape market trends through strategic investments. Grandpa Theo's collection, Mom whispered, realization dawning. That's how you started. He saw what you didn't, I confirmed. Not just artistic talent but business acumen. He gave me the tools to build something unprecedented. The screens showed headline after headline about Bennett Global Arts' market influence, though none had ever connected the company to the struggling artist Sophia Bennett. Why hide it? Dad asked, his lawyer's mind clearly trying to make sense of the deception. I turned to face them fully. Because you taught me that power is more effective when people underestimate you. Every dismissive comment, every mockery of my choices, just made it easier to build this empire without interference. Marcus appeared at the door. Miss Bennett, the auction is ready to begin. Thank you, Marcus. I turned back to my family. Now, would you like to see what wasting time with art really looks like? The auction that followed was a masterpiece of choreographed power. I watched my family's expressions shift from shock to awe as paintings sold for millions. Every sale represented not just profit, but validation of my vision. Between bids, I caught snippets of conversation from nearby guests. She's revolutionized the market. The youngest powerhouse in the art world. Her investment strategy is brilliant. James, who had spent years introducing me as his artistic little sister, now stood silent as major collectors greeted me with obvious respect. The final lot of the evening was special. A piece I'd created under my pseudonym, though only Marcus knew this detail. Our last offering, Marcus announced, is from the reclusive artist St. Rivers, whose works have become highly sought after in recent years. I watched my family's reactions as the bidding quickly escalated past $5 million. They had no idea they were watching my own artwork sell for more than James's annual partner draw at his law firm. The piece finally sold for $7.8 million to a Saudi princess, who immediately requested a private meeting with the gallery owner, Humi, to discuss commissioning more works. As the evening wound down, I could see my family struggling to reconcile their image of their failed artist daughter with the powerful figure they'd discovered. The transformation was complete, but the real test would be what came next. How would they handle this new reality? Would they acknowledge their misjudgment or try to rewrite history? Marcus approached with the final sales figures for the evening. It was time for the last act of this carefully orchestrated revelation. The morning after the exhibition, I sat in my real office, a stunning duplex penthouse atop one of Manhattan's most exclusive buildings. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of Central Park, while the walls showcased my private collection, including pieces worth more than my family's combined net worth. A soft knock announced Marcus's arrival with my morning briefing. "The final numbers from last night," he said, sliding a report across my desk. "Total sales, $127 million. Your personal piece set a new record for contemporary abstract works." I smiled, thinking of my family's faces when they'd watched the bidding war without realizing it was my art being sold. "Any press coverage?" "Every major art publication is running stories about the mysterious owner of Bennett Global Arts finally revealing herself. The Wall Street Journal wants an exclusive interview." Before I could respond, my private elevator chimed. The security feed showed my parents and James in the lobby. "They're persistent, I'll give them that," I mused. "Send them up." Moments later, my family stepped into my office, their expressions a mix of awe and discomfort as they took in the space that so clearly displayed my success. "Nice view," James managed, his attempt at casual falling flat. "Better than the struggling artist studio you used to mock?" I asked pleasantly, watching him flinch at the reminder. Mom moved to examine the nearest painting. This is a Rothko." "Yes," I confirmed. "Purchased last year for $58 million. One of my better investments. It's appreciated 20% already." "Dad," ever the lawyer, cut straight to the point. "Why are we here, Sophia?" "You came to my office," I reminded him. "But since you're here, let's talk about last night." I pressed a button and screens descended from the ceiling, displaying a comprehensive overview of my empire. Galleries worldwide, investment portfolios, artist development programs, and market analysis that had shaped the international art scene for years. Bennett Global Arts isn't just a company, I explained. It's a revolution in how art is valued, traded, and invested in. While you were pitying my wasted potential, I was building something unprecedented. "But why the deception?" Mom asked, her voice small. "Why let us believe you were struggling?" I walked to the window, considering my answer. "Do you remember what you said when I won my first major art competition in high school?" They looked blank. "You said, 'That's nice, dear, but don't let it distract you from real opportunities.' Every achievement in art was dismissed as a distraction. Every success was minimized because it didn't fit your definition of value. We were trying to protect you," Dad protested. "No," I corrected firmly. "You were trying to control me. To force me into a mold that worked for James but would have killed everything unique about me." I moved to a particular painting, one of my own works, though they didn't know it. Grandpa Theo was the only one who saw that my love of art wasn't just about creating beauty. He recognized that I understood both the artistic and financial aspects of this world. He gave me the freedom to combine them in my own way. James, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. "The clients I've been trying to land, they've been working with you all along, haven't they?" "Most of them," I confirmed. "That merger you were so proud of last month? The art collection valuation that made it possible came through one of my subsidiaries." The irony wasn't lost on any of us. Marcus returned with coffee and a stack of morning papers, all featuring stories about the exhibition and the revealed power player in the art world. "The art forum piece is particularly interesting," he noted, handing me the magazine. "They're calling you the most influential force in contemporary art market dynamics." Mom reached for the magazine with trembling hands. "Our daughter, the one we thought needed saving, is actually successful beyond your wildest expectations?" I finished for her. "Yes. Just not in the way you prescribed." I led them on a tour of my real life, the private gallery where I created my works under the St. Rivers pseudonym, the state-of-the-art conservation studio where we restored priceless masterpieces, the digital command center where we tracked global art market trends. This piece, I said, stopping at a particular painting, sold for $7.8 million last night. Would you like to know who the artist is? They nodded, still overwhelmed by everything they were seeing. I painted it. St. Rivers, Sophia Theodore Rivers Bennett. Every time you mocked my little paintings, you were actually mocking works that sold for millions. The silence that followed was deafening. I don't expect instant understanding or approval, I continued. Those stopped mattering to me years ago. What I do expect is respect for my choices, my success, and my vision. Dad cleared his throat. The legal structuring of your company, it's brilliant. Yes, I agreed. Almost as if I learned something in business school while wasting time with art. The next few hours were filled with questions, explanations, and gradually dawning recognition of just how completely they had misjudged me. Mom cried when she realized how many important moments she had missed. James struggled to reconcile his years of condescension with my obvious success. As they prepared to leave, I had one final revelation. The Morrison Gallery exhibition space? It's being renamed next month. I handed them an invitation. The Theodore Bennett Gallery for Contemporary Arts, in honor of the one person who believed in combining business acumen with artistic vision. He would be so proud, Mom whispered. He was proud, I corrected. He knew everything. Every success, every acquisition, every milestone. He just understood the power of letting me succeed on my own terms. That evening, alone in my office, I received an unexpected text from James. I was wrong. About everything. Coffee sometime? My treat, if I can afford your taste now. I smiled, typing back. There's a little cafe in my building. I own it, but the coffee's excellent. His response came quickly. Of course you do. Does anything in this city not belong to you? Come find out, I replied. Looking out over the city lights, I thought about Grandpa Theo and how he taught me that true success isn't just about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. The empire I'd built wasn't just a response to my family's doubts. It was a manifestation of my complete vision. If you've ever been told your dreams aren't practical enough, that your passion won't pay the bills, remember this. Sometimes the greatest success comes from combining what others see as contradictions. Business and art. Investment and creativity. Pragmatism and passion. Have you ever had to hide your success to protect your dreams? Or felt the need to prove yourself to those who doubted you? Share your story in the comments below. And if this journey of hidden triumph and artistic vindication resonated with you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about success on your own terms. Remember, sometimes the most powerful masterpiece isn't hanging on a gallery wall. It's the life you build while others are busy doubting your canvas. They called me the family disappointment. It wasn't said to my face, at least not always. But I heard it in the whispers, saw it in the sidelong glances, felt it in the weight of silence when I walked into rooms. I'm Amanda Mitchell, and until last week, I was the black sheep of a family that measured success in degrees, job titles, and country club memberships. The day everything changed started like any other Thanksgiving at the Mitchell estate. I parked my modest Honda Civic between my brother James's Tesla and my sister Catherine's Range Rover. The contrast wasn't subtle, but then again, nothing in my family ever was. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror, adjusting my simple black sweater. No designer labels, no flashy jewelry. Just me carrying a homemade pie and years of quiet determination. As I walked up the marble steps, I could already hear the voices inside, the familiar symphony of achievement and ambition. Catherine just made partner at Goldman. James's tech startup got another round of funding. Did you hear about Cousin Michael's merger deal? I took a deep breath and opened the door. The foyer was exactly as I remembered: crystal chandelier, family photos arranged perfectly on the walls. Though somehow none of them included me. Amanda. My mother's voice carried from the kitchen, more announcement than greeting. You're late. Again. Traffic, I said simply, though I'd actually been in a meeting that could change everything. But they didn't need to know that. Not yet. I made my way to the kitchen where my mother stood orchestrating dinner like a symphony conductor. Her Chanel suit was immaculate, not a single gray hair out of place. She barely glanced at my pie. Oh, you brought dessert. How nice. Put it with the others. the others being the professional pastries from that expensive bakery downtown. I placed my pie quietly among them, knowing it wouldn't be served. Amanda. My sister Catherine emerged from the living room, glass of wine in hand. Still working at that, what do you call it? Tech support thing. I smiled faintly. Something like that. Let them think I answered phones all day. Let them assume I was barely getting by. The truth was far more interesting, but timing was everything. Well, at least you're employed, she said with that particular tone, part pity, part superiority. Did you hear about my promotion? Senior partner. Youngest in the firm's history. Congratulations, I said, meaning it. Catherine had always been brilliant. She'd also always needed everyone to know it. James appeared next, his startup CEO status worn like armor. Hey sis, he said, glancing at my outfit. H&M having a sale? Target actually, I replied. His smirk widened. If he only knew the real cost of my success, not in dollars, but in countless sleepless nights, calculated risks, and silent sacrifices. Dad was in his study naturally, the sacred space where family legacies were discussed and disappointments were measured. He looked up from his desk as I entered. Amanda, he said, my name heavy with unspoken judgment. Glad you could make time for family. I nodded, choosing silence over explanation. How could I tell him I'd just closed a deal that would make his annual income look like pocket change? That while they thought I was struggling in some dead-end job, I'd built something revolutionary. The dining room was a museum of success. Awards, degrees, and photographs covered the walls. Catherine's law school graduation, James's feature in Tech Weekly, Mom's charity gala speeches. The empty spaces spoke volumes about where I stood in the family hierarchy. As we gathered around the table, the usual parade began. Updates on promotions, investments, acquisitions. Each achievement laid out like fine china, meant to shine and impress. Catherine's firm just landed the Anderson account, Mom announced proudly. $3 billion in assets under management. James's app got featured in the App Store, Dad added. Top 10 in its category. Then came the inevitable pause, the moment where they'd usually skip over me. But this time Aunt Sarah, ever the pot stirrer, turned her attention my way. And what about you, Amanda? Still doing whatever it is you do? The table went quiet. All eyes turned to me, some curious, most pitying. I could feel the weight of their expectations, their assumptions, their disappointments. Oh, you know, I said softly, just working. Such a shame, Aunt Sarah stage whispered to my mother. She had such potential. If only she'd followed the family path. I took a sip of water, hiding my smile. They had no idea that tomorrow morning Forbes would announce their 30 under 30 list. That my little tech support thing was actually an AI company revolutionizing quantum computing. That the whatever it is you do had caught the attention of every major tech giant in Silicon Valley. Remember when she turned down Harvard Business School? Uncle Robert chimed in. Could have had a real career. At least she's independent, Mom offered weakly, the faintest praise she could muster. Even if it's modest. Dad cleared his throat. Well, not everyone can be an achiever. Someone has to do the regular jobs. I cut into my turkey, letting their words wash over me. In less than 12 hours, their whole perception would shatter. The Forbes article wasn't just an announcement, it was a revelation. My company, quietly built over 5 years, was now valued at $4.2 billion. My net worth, hidden behind shell companies and careful planning, would make Catherine's partner salary look like an allowance. Did anyone see the market predictions for next quarter? James asked, steering the conversation back to familiar territory. My startup's positioned perfectly. I let them talk, let them bask in their perceived successes. Let them think I was the family disappointment one last time. Tomorrow would change everything, but tonight I had a front row seat to the last performance of their outdated show. Amanda, Catherine said suddenly, you should really talk to Mark at my firm. He's hiring entry-level positions. Could be a fresh start for you. I smiled, thinking of the email sitting in my inbox from Mark CO, practically begging for a partnership with my company. Thanks, I said. I'll keep that in mind. The evening continued, a carefully choreographed dance of subtle digs and backhanded compliments. Each time they mentioned my situation, I thought about the Forbes photoshoot hidden in my phone, the headlines already queued for morning release. As dessert arrived, store-bought pies only, of course, Dad raised his glass for the annual toast. To the Mitchell family legacy, he declared. To achievement, ambition, and excellence. They clinked glasses while I held mine steady, waiting. In just a few hours they'd learn what real achievement looked like. What real ambition could build. What excellence meant beyond their narrow definition. Maybe next year will be Amanda's year, Aunt Sarah offered, not unkindly but with that familiar condescension. I caught my reflection in the silver serving tray, calm, composed, knowing. Maybe it will, I said quietly. Pass the turkey? 5 years earlier I sat in a tiny studio apartment, surrounded by empty coffee cups and code running across 3 monitors. This was where it all began, not in Harvard's hallowed halls or Goldman's trading floors, but in a cramped space that my family would have been embarrassed to visit. My laptop pinged. Another email from my mother. Darling, James is hosting a tech networking event. Perfect opportunity for you to find a real job. Do try to dress appropriately if you come. I minimized the email, focusing instead on the complex algorithm flowing across my screen. What they didn't know was that I'd discovered something revolutionary in quantum computing. Something that would change everything. It started during my disappointing job at a small tech firm, the one my family thought was basic IT support. In reality, I was leading a small research team working on quantum algorithms that could revolutionize data processing. While Catherine collected law firm partnerships and James chased startup funding, I was quietly filing patents that would later become priceless. Your code is incredible, Marcus, my first employee, said one late night. Why don't you tell your family what you're really building? I remembered my father's words when I declined Harvard. You're choosing mediocrity, Amanda. That's not the Mitchell way. They wouldn't understand, I replied, typing faster. Not yet. The first breakthrough came unexpectedly. At 3 a.m. while my family slept in their mansion, I solved a quantum computing problem that had stumped experts for decades. My hands shook as I verified the results. The next morning, while my mother texted about Catherine's latest court victory, I was meeting with venture capitalists. They got it immediately. This is revolutionary, one said, sliding a term sheet across the table. We want an early stage. Whatever you need. I took minimal funding, maintaining control. Built everything from ground up, selecting each team member carefully. We worked in an unmarked office building, away from the tech hub where James hosted his networking parties. Every family dinner became an exercise in restraint. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, each holiday a parade of achievements that weren't mine. Or so they thought. Still at that help desk job? James would ask while my company quietly acquired his competitors. You could always go back to school, Mom would suggest as I signed contracts worth millions. I lived simply, drove my old car, kept wearing non-designer clothes. Every dollar went back into the company. When Catherine bought her Range Rover, I was buying server farms. When James celebrated his app's millionth download, I was developing technology that would make his look primitive. Then came the government contracts. The military implications of our quantum computing breakthroughs attracted attention at the highest levels. I sat in Pentagon meetings wearing my cheap clothes, making decisions that would reshape national security. Sorry I missed your charity gala, Mom, I'd say over the phone while signing classified documents. Work's been busy. Oh darling, answering phones must be so exhausting, she'd reply. The company grew. Quietly, strategically. No flashy press releases, no social media buzz. Just solid innovation and execution. My team understood the vision. We weren't building for show, we were building for impact. One Tuesday morning, my CFO walked in with a valuation report. Amanda, she said, we've crossed 4 billion. I stared at the numbers while my phone buzzed with another family text. Catherine bragging about her new summer house. The irony wasn't lost on me. The Forbes reporter called on a Wednesday. Your quantum computing breakthroughs are remarkable, she said. We want to feature you in 30 under 30. I hesitated. This would change everything. No more hiding, no more quiet building. We've verified your company's valuation, she continued. This is going to be big. That same evening, I sat through another family dinner. Mom proudly announced James's latest funding round, $10 million. I thought about my last contract, $500 million classified. Maybe Amanda could invest, Uncle Robert joked. if she saved anything from her little job. I excused myself to take a call, the Pentagon again. Another project, another billion-dollar implication. Through the dining room window, I could see my family laughing, celebrating their visible successes, completely unaware of what was coming. The photo shoot for Forbes was surreal. They wanted to capture the hidden genius angle. The quiet revolutionary who built an empire in secret. Your family really doesn't know? The photographer asked, adjusting his camera. They will, I said, thinking of the upcoming Thanksgiving dinner. The week before the Forbes release, I sat in my real office, the top floor of a building I owned. Monitors showed our global operations, quantum computers processing data that would reshape industries. My assistant knocked. Your mother called. Wanted to remind you about Thanksgiving dinner. She said, and I quote, try to be on time for once. I looked out over the city at buildings where decisions were made using my technology. At streets where cars ran on systems my company had optimized. At a world that was already changing because of work my family thought was just tech support. Tell her I'll be there, I said. The day before Thanksgiving, final preparations for the Forbes release were made. The article was set to go live at 6 a.m. Eastern. My team had prepared for the media storm, the investor calls, the inevitable questions. Your phones will explode, my PR director warned. Everyone will want to know how you built this in secret. I thought of all the family dinners where I sat quietly, letting them assume I was struggling. All the condescending advice I'd absorbed while closing billion-dollar deals. That night, I parked my Honda outside my real house, a modest 3-bedroom I used when not staying at my penthouse. My phone buzzed with a text from Catherine. Wearing something nice tomorrow? Mom's invited some important people. I looked at my closet, designer clothes still in garment bags, never worn. Tomorrow I'd wear my usual simple outfit. Let them see that success didn't need Gucci labels or Rolex watches. The Forbes article was perfect. The photos professional but understated. The numbers undeniable. My net worth, my company's impact, the technological breakthroughs, all laid out in black and white. As I went to bed that night, I thought about how everything would change. How the whispers would stop, the condescension would fade, the disappointment would transform into disbelief. But mostly I thought about the look that would cross their faces when they realized that while they were broadcasting their success, I was quietly building something revolutionary. Tomorrow, over turkey and stuffing, their definition of achievement would be completely rewritten. Thanksgiving morning arrived with a soft ping from my phone, 6 a.m. Forbes had gone live. I lay in bed for a moment, knowing the world was about to shift. My PR team had already sent the first metrics. Article trending, shares exploding, comments flooding in. I made coffee and waited. My brother James called first at 6:13 a.m. I let it go to voicemail. Catherine was next, 3 times in 5 minutes. Then Mom, Dad, Aunt Sarah, Uncle Robert, a cascade of calls and texts that made my phone dance across the kitchen counter. Amanda, is this true? Call me immediately. What's going on? $4.2 billion? I silenced my phone and got ready for dinner, choosing my usual simple black sweater and slacks. Today they'd learn that power didn't need designer labels. By noon the story had exploded. CNBC picked it up. Tech's hidden billionaire. The quantum computing revolutionary no one saw coming. Wall Street Journal. Mitchell Innovations. The stealth company reshaping global technology. Bloomberg. Meet Amanda Mitchell, the secretive genius behind modern quantum computing. My PR director called. It's chaos out here. Every major network wants an interview. The Pentagon's making statements about your contracts. Your company's stock would be surging if you were public. I smiled. Let's focus on Thanksgiving dinner first. When I pulled up to my parents' house at 2 p.m., the scene was different. Security guards hired by my concerned father after reporters started showing up stood at the gate. My old Honda caused visible confusion until they checked their list. Ms. Mitchell, one said, suddenly standing straighter. Sorry, we didn't, recognize the car. The driveway was full of familiar luxury vehicles, but now my Civic didn't seem modest. It seemed like a statement. I could hear the commotion inside before I even reached the door. It swung open before I could knock. Mom stood there, perfectly coiffed as always, but her hands were shaking. Amanda, she whispered like she was seeing me for the first time. Why didn't you tell us? I stepped past her into the foyer, now crowded with family members who'd apparently arrived early for the show. The usual Thanksgiving chatter was replaced by tense silence. Dad emerged from his study, holding a tablet with the Forbes article still glowing on the screen. He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. 4.2 billion, he said finally, each word careful and measured. Give or take, I replied quietly. Market fluctuations, you know. Catherine sat on the stairs, still in her power suit but looking oddly deflated. Her phone kept buzzing, probably her law firm partners realizing who her sister really was. James stood by the fireplace, gripping his whiskey glass too tightly. The Forbes article had mentioned acquiring some of his competitors. He'd been pitching to my company for months, never knowing who really owned it. But, you drive a Honda, Aunt Sarah said weakly, as if this was the most shocking part. It's reliable, I answered, walking to the kitchen with my pie. This time no one made comments about store-bought being better. Mom followed me, wringing her hands. Darling, all this time, we thought, why didn't you say anything? I placed my pie carefully on the counter. Would it have mattered? When I declined Harvard, you'd already decided my path. When I took that first job, you'd already written the story. But the Pentagon, quantum computing, billions. Her voice cracked. We're your family. Yes, I said softly. And family should believe in you without needing proof. The dining room was eerily quiet as everyone took their seats. The usual hierarchy had shattered. Catherine's partner salary, James's startup valuation, even Dad's corporate empire. Everything looked different now. Uncle Robert cleared his throat. Well, this is unexpected. Is it? I asked, looking around the table. Or did you just never bother to expect it from me? Dad stood suddenly, wine glass in hand. His traditional toast, but for the first time he seemed uncertain. To the Mitchell family legacy, he started, then stopped. The words, achievement, and excellence, stuck in his throat as he looked at me. To quiet revolution, I offered, raising my water glass. To building rather than boasting. To success that doesn't need announcements. Mom fainted then, actually fainted, when someone's phone showed another headline. Mitchell Innovations receives $10 billion buyout offer. As they rushed to fan her, I stayed seated, calmly cutting my turkey. Pass the cranberry sauce? I asked James, who hadn't moved since the Forbes notification hit his phone. You bought Comptech last month, he whispered. That was you. Among others, I nodded. Your pitch was interesting, by the way. Just not quite what we were looking for. Catherine found her voice next. Mark, my firm Sue, he's been trying to reach you all morning. I know, I said. We're restructuring his company's entire digital infrastructure. The contract's worth more than your firm's annual revenue. Dad returned, helping a wobbly mom back to her seat. Their faces had lost that certainty, that assured confidence that they knew best. Why now? Dad asked finally. Why reveal everything today? I looked around the table at the family photos on the walls that had never included me, at the awards and achievements they'd celebrated while dismissing mine, at the empty spaces where my successes should have been displayed. Because today isn't about revealing success, I said quietly. It's about revealing truth. About showing that achievement doesn't always wear designer labels or drive luxury cars. Sometimes it works silently, builds steadily, and changes the world without needing applause. Aunt Sarah dabbed her eyes. We've been horrible to you. No, I corrected her. You've been blind. There's a difference. My phone buzzed. The president's office requesting a meeting about national security implications of our quantum technology. I declined politely. Today was for family. I have a confession, I said, looking at my mother. That tech support job you thought I had? I owned the company. That small office you refused to visit? It was one of 30 worldwide. That simple life you pitied? It was a choice. Mom's hands trembled as she reached for her water. All those holidays you missed. I was in Pentagon meetings, Mom. Or signing contracts in Tokyo. Or developing technology that will help cure diseases. The silence that followed was heavy with realization. Years of assumptions crumbling, of certainties dissolving, of hierarchies collapsing. What happens now? James asked, his voice small. I smiled, genuinely this time. Well, we eat turkey. But really talk. And maybe we learn to see people for who they are, not who we assume them to be. Dad stood again, this time without his wine glass. Amanda, I know, I said softly. Pass the turkey. As dishes were passed and plates were filled, I felt the shift in the room. The family disappointment had become the family revelation. The quiet daughter had become the powerful CEO. The assumed failure had become the unprecedented success. But more importantly, the masks had fallen. The pretenses had crumbled. And maybe, just maybe, real family could begin. My phone buzzed one final time, another headline. Mitchell Innovations announces revolutionary cancer detection technology. I smiled, reaching for the mashed potatoes. Anyone want to hear about what I really do for a living? And for the first time in years, my family truly listened. The mahogany conference table gleamed under the artificial lights of Bennett Industries' main boardroom. I adjusted my simple black blazer, bought off the rack at a department store, exactly what my family would expect from their struggling youngest daughter, and took my usual seat at the far end of the table. Sarah dear, my mother's voice carried that familiar note of disappointment. You could have at least worn something more appropriate for a family business meeting. I glanced down at my outfit, hiding a smile. The blazer probably cost more than her entire designer ensemble, but they'd never know that. Just like they'd never bothered to ask what I really did for the past 5 years. My brother Michael strode in, every inch the heir apparent in his tailored suit. He'd taken over as CEO 3 years ago when Dad semi-retired, a position he'd neither earned nor deserved. But in our family, being the firstborn son trumped little things like competence or vision. Still playing secretary at that little tech startup? He smirked, settling into his power position at the head of the table. What do they call you there? Executive assistant to the assistant executive? I kept my expression neutral. Administrative director, I corrected, though it didn't matter. They'd already written their own version of my story. Dad entered last, still carrying himself with the authority of a man who'd built an empire, even if that empire was now slowly crumbling under Michael's leadership. Not that anyone would admit it. Before we begin, Michael announced, shuffling some papers importantly, I think we need to address the elephant in the room. He fixed me with what he probably thought was a compassionate look. Sarah's situation. Here it came. I'd been waiting for this moment for exactly 3 years, 2 months and 15 days. The family image is important, my mother added, her perfectly manicured hands clasped in front of her. And frankly, dear, working as a secretary at your age, it reflects poorly on all of us. I thought about the meeting I'd had just that morning. The final signatures on documents that would shake the city's business world to its core. The Forbes photographer who'd left my real office. Not the tiny cubicle my family had never bothered to visit, just hours ago. We've been patient, Michael continued, hoping you'd come to your senses. Return to the family business where you belong. In an appropriate role, of course. Of course, I echoed softly. What did you have in mind? Well, he smiled condescendingly, we could use someone to organize the company archives. Maybe handle some basic administrative duties. My phone buzzed silently in my pocket. A message from Marcus, my actual CFO. Contracts signed. Press release scheduled for 6 p.m. I checked my watch. 2 hours until everything changed. The thing is, Dad leaned forward, the Bennett name means something in this city. And your current position. It's becoming embarrassing. I thought about the Bennett Industries stock price, down 40% since Michael took over. About the clients they'd lost, the innovations they'd missed, the future they couldn't see coming. Did you know, I said carefully, that the tech sector is announcing a major acquisition today? Biggest deal in the city's history. Michael waved his hand dismissively. Some startup probably burning through venture capital. Nothing that concerns us. Interesting perspective, I murmured, thinking of the papers sitting in my other office. The ones that would show exactly who was burning through what. Sarah, my mother sighed, this is serious. We found you a position at the country club. Assistant to the events coordinator. Much more suitable for someone of your background. I studied her face, wondering if she'd even recognize the woman featured in tomorrow's business section. The one they were calling a tech visionary, a silent empire builder, the future of innovation. The timing is perfect, Michael added smugly. That little startup you're working for, what's it called? Nexus Tech? I hear they're having financial troubles. I bit back a laugh. Nexus Tech was my smallest holding company, deliberately kept modest, deliberately struggling on paper. The perfect cover for what I'd really been building. Financial troubles? I asked innocently. What makes you say that? He preened slightly. I have sources. Inside information. They're about to be acquired by a major player. Probably clean house, strip the assets. You'll be out of a job anyway. My phone buzzed again. Marcus, media alert in 10 minutes. Preliminary leak to build suspense. Actually, I said standing slowly, I should probably head back to the office. Lots of paperwork to handle with this acquisition you mentioned. Don't worry, my mother called as I headed for the door. The country club position starts Monday. We've already arranged everything. I paused at the threshold. That's thoughtful of you. But I think I'll be busy Monday. And probably every day after that. Doing what? Michael scoffed. Filing papers for your soon-to-be unemployed boss? Just then, every phone in the room chimed simultaneously. Breaking news alerts. I didn't need to look at my screen. I knew what it said. Breaking. Major tech acquisition to be announced at 6 p.m. Sources say largest deal in city history. Mystery buyer to be revealed. Some startup burning through venture capital, I quoted softly, watching Michael fumble with his phone. Nothing that concerns us, right? I walked out, leaving them to their confusion. In less than 2 hours they'd learn exactly what concerned them. And exactly who they'd been underestimating all these years. The next hour passed in a blur of final preparations. In my real office, the entire top floor of the gleaming Atlas Tower downtown, I reviewed the press release one last time while Marcus paced nearby. They have no idea, do they? He asked, adjusting his tie nervously. Your family? That you're about to own their company too. I smiled, remembering Michael's smug certainty about his inside information regarding Nexus Tech. He'd been right about one thing, it was being acquired. What he didn't know was that Nexus was just a small piece of my larger corporation, Atlas Technologies. And Atlas had just completed a hostile takeover of Bennett Industries' largest competitor. By tomorrow, Bennett Industries would have exactly 2 choices. Merge with Atlas or face complete market obsolescence. They're about to know everything, I said, standing to adjust my blazer. The same simple black blazer that had so disappointed my mother. Are we ready? Marcus nodded, checking his tablet. Press conference set up downstairs. All major networks confirmed. Your family will probably see it live on TV. Perfect. I moved to the window, looking out over the city I'd quietly conquered while playing the role they'd assigned me. Time to rewrite the story they've been telling about me. At exactly 5:55 p.m. I stepped into the elevator. Marcus handed me a small folder, the only prop I'd need for what came next. Your mother's been trying to reach you, he said. Apparently, the country club called to confirm your start date. I laughed softly. Tell them I'll have to decline. I'm afraid I'm otherwise engaged. The elevator doors opened to reveal a lobby packed with reporters, cameras, and curious onlookers. A podium waited at the center, the Atlas Technologies logo displayed prominently behind it. As I walked to the podium, my phone buzzed one last time. A message from Michael. Turn on the news. Some tech company is about to announce a massive takeover. Could affect our market position. I slipped the phone into my pocket without replying. He'd find out soon enough exactly how it would affect their market position. The cameras flashed as I took my place at the podium. Somewhere across the city, in the Bennett Industries boardroom, my family was probably gathered around the television, waiting to see who this mystery tech buyer was. I smiled directly into the cameras, knowing the moment had finally arrived. Good evening, I began, my voice clear and confident. I'm Sarah Bennett, CEO of Atlas Technologies. The rest would be history. The aftermath was immediate and explosive. As I finished my press conference, revealing not just Atlas Technologies' acquisition of Bennett Industries' biggest competitor, but also our groundbreaking AI technology that would revolutionize the industry, my phone exploded with notifications. 27 missed calls from Michael. 15 from Mom. 43 from Dad. 89 text messages and counting. I sat in my office, watching the sun set over the city skyline while Marcus brought in the evening news reports. Tech visionary Sarah Bennett emerges as city's newest billionaire. Atlas Technologies acquisition reshapes industry landscape. Bennett Industries faces uncertain future as competitor falls to former CEO's daughter. Your brother's been trying to get into the building, Marcus reported, setting down a fresh coffee. Security turned him away 3 times. I nodded, picking up my phone to read the latest message from Michael. This is impossible. You're lying. This has to be some kind of mistake. Call me immediately. Then from Mom. Darling, we're all so proud. Why didn't you tell us? The country club position is obviously no longer necessary. I set the phone down without replying. Through my office windows I could see the Bennett Industries tower in the distance, where I knew they were probably having an emergency board meeting right now. Ms. Bennett, my assistant's voice came through the intercom. Your father's here. He's in the lobby. I checked the security feed. There he stood, Richard Bennett, looking smaller somehow in the vast marble lobby of Atlas Tower. His usual commanding presence diminished by confusion and dawning realization. Send him up, I said after a moment's consideration. And Marcus? Pull up the merger proposal. While waiting, I studied my reflection in the window. Still wearing that simple black blazer that had so offended my mother's sensibilities this morning. Amazing how different the same outfit looked when framed by a billion-dollar view. The door opened and Dad stepped in. His eyes took in everything, the sophisticated technology displays, the wall of industry awards I'd kept hidden, the commanding view of the city he thought he knew. The secretary, he said quietly, almost to himself. All this time we thought. You thought what you wanted to think, I finished for him. Never asked, never looked closer, never questioned why a Stanford MBA with a perfect GPA would be content as a low-level administrator. He sank into one of the visitor chairs, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Why the deception? I turned to face him fully. Deception? I built this company openly. Filed all the proper paperwork. Even used my real name. You just never bothered to look. But Nexus Tech was a small subsidiary. A cover story for a family that wouldn't understand or accept what I was really building. I sat down behind my desk. Did you know Michael tried to buy them last year? Offered them pennies on the dollar, thinking they were struggling. Dad's face showed he hadn't known. He was negotiating with my junior VP, I continued, who reported directly to me. Every lowball offer, every arrogant comment, every time he called it a little woman-owned startup that needed a real businessman to take charge. Sarah. He began, but I held up my hand. Now we should discuss the merger proposal. Merger proposal? I slid a folder across the desk. Atlas Technologies is offering to acquire Bennett Industries. The terms are generous, considering your company's recent performance. He opened the folder with trembling hands. This would mean. It means Bennett Industries becomes part of Atlas. You keep the name, keep some autonomy, but ultimately answer to our board. I paused. To me, the silence stretched between us, heavy with years of dismissal and underestimation. And if we refuse? I pulled up a market analysis on my screen, turning it so he could see. Then you compete against us. Against our superior technology, our growing market share, and the fact that as of an hour ago, we own your largest supplier. His face paled. The Morrison Group acquisition. That was you too. I nodded. Like I said, the terms are generous. For now. Michael won't accept this, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Michael just lost your 3 biggest clients to us this afternoon. They signed the transfer contracts right after my press conference. I leaned back in my chair. He doesn't have to accept it. The board will do that for him. Just then my phone buzzed with a news alert. Bennett Industries stock was plummeting in after-hours trading. Dad saw it too on his own phone and seemed to deflate further. You've thought of everything, he said finally. I learned from the best, I replied. You always taught us to be thorough. To see 10 steps ahead. I just applied those lessons differently than you expected. A knock at the door interrupted us. Marcus entered with a tablet. Sorry to interrupt, but Mrs. Bennett and Mr. Michael Bennett are in the lobby. They're insistent. I looked at my father. Your choice. We can all discuss this now, or you can take the proposal back to them. Either way, I need an answer by morning. Dad stood slowly, clutching the folder like a lifeline. We'll discuss it as a family. No, I corrected gently. You'll discuss it as a business. That's what you always wanted, isn't it? For me to take business seriously. As he turned to leave, he paused at the door. The secretary role, all those years, was the perfect cover. No one questions the quiet woman taking notes in the corner. No one edits what they say around the person they think isn't important. I smiled slightly. Even you never noticed when I stopped bringing coffee to meetings and started buying your competitors. After he left, Marcus brought in the evening reports. Your mother's called 6 more times. Michael's threatening to sue for corporate espionage. Let him try, I said, turning back to the window. Every document is perfect. Every transaction legal. They raced me to be thorough after all. As night fell over the city, I watched the lights come on in buildings I now owned. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, more family drama, more attempts to regain control. But for now, sitting in my office in my simple black blazer, I was exactly where I needed to be. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't proving people wrong. It's letting them realize they never really knew you at all. The morning after my revelation brought exactly the chaos I'd expected. I arrived at Atlas Tower at 7 a.m. to find the lobby already buzzing with activity. Reporters camped outside, financial analysts making predictions on morning shows, and my family, well, they were making their own kind of noise. Your sister's on CNBC, Marcus reported, falling into step beside me as I walked to my office. Claiming she always knew you had potential and supported you from the beginning. I smiled, remembering Amanda's words at last month's family dinner. At least I'm doing something worthwhile with my life, not just pushing papers at some startup. And Michael issued a press release. Says Bennett Industries welcomes the opportunity to collaborate with emerging tech companies and looks forward to guiding your innovative but inexperienced team. I settled behind my desk, opening my laptop. Send him the latest market reports. Show him exactly who needs guidance. The numbers were devastating. Bennett Industries stock had dropped another 15% in pre-market trading. 3 more major clients had already contacted Atlas about transferring their contracts. And the morning's financial papers were running stories about Michael's history of failed initiatives and missed opportunities. Your mother's in the lobby again, my assistant's voice came through the intercom. With your Aunt Patricia this time. I checked the security feed. Mom stood there in her designer suit, trying to charm the security desk while Aunt Patricia filmed the lobby on her phone. Probably for her social media, where she'd already posted 3 times about her brilliant niece who takes after my side of the family. Send them up, I said. And Marcus, bring in the family trust documents. While waiting, I reviewed the morning's acquisition reports. Atlas's stock had surged another 20%. Our AI technology announcement had sparked a buying frenzy, and the patents all in my name were already being called revolutionary. The door opened and Mom swept in, arms outstretched. Darling, why didn't you tell us? We've been worried sick. Have you? I remained seated. Funny, you weren't worried yesterday when you were arranging my country club job. She faltered slightly but recovered quickly. Oh, that. We were just trying to help. Obviously you didn't need it. Though you might have said something. I did. Many times. You just never listened. Aunt Patricia was still filming, panning across my office. This will be perfect for my Instagram. My niece, the tech mogul. The country club ladies won't believe it. No photos, I said firmly. And no social media. The only statements about Atlas come from our official channels. But we're family. Mom protested. Surely we should be involved in the narrative. Like you involved me in the family narrative? I pulled up some old social media posts on my screen. Here's you last Christmas. So proud of Michael's leadership of Bennett Industries. At least one of my children understands business. She had the grace to look embarrassed. And here's Aunt Patricia. Some people work their way up, others settle for secretary work. So disappointed in my niece's lack of ambition. We didn't know, Aunt Patricia started, but I cut her off. You didn't ask. None of you did. You wrote your own story about who I was and what I could achieve. I stood up. And now you want to rewrite it to include yourselves. The answer is no. But the family name, Mom began, is exactly why I built Atlas under my own terms. No nepotism, no family connections, just pure merit and innovation. I pressed the intercom. Marcus, Bring in the media contracts. He entered with a stack of documents. Standard NDAs, I explained. If you want to maintain any connection to Atlas or me personally, you'll sign these. No unauthorized statements, no social media posts, no carefully edited family history. This is ridiculous, Aunt Patricia huffed. We're blood. Blood doesn't give you the right to claim credit for success you actively discouraged. I handed them each a pen. Sign or leave. Either way, the story of Atlas Technologies will be told my way. Just then my phone buzzed. A message from our legal team. Michael was calling an emergency Bennett Industries board meeting. Trying to push through a poison pill defense against our merger offer. Excuse me, I said, gathering some files. I have a board meeting to attend. But we haven't finished discussing the family implications. Mom protested. I paused at the door. Actually, we have. You can either accept the new reality or keep living in your old narrative. Either way, Atlas moves forward. The Bennett Industries boardroom looked exactly as it had yesterday morning when they'd mocked my secretary job. But now, sitting at the head of the table as the potential acquirer rather than the dismissed daughter, the dynamic had shifted dramatically. Michael stood at the front, desperately trying to rally support. This hostile takeover attempt is just that, hostile. We can fight this. Our family legacy is failing, I interrupted quietly, making every head turn. Your leadership has lost 40% of company value in 3 years. Your innovation pipeline is empty. And as of this morning, your largest remaining client has signed with Atlas. You can't just walk in here. He started. Actually, I can. Atlas now owns 15% of Bennett Industries shares, purchased slowly over the past year while you were too busy mocking my career to notice the buyer. The board members shifted uncomfortably. They'd all seen the morning's market reports. This isn't a hostile takeover, I continued. It's a rescue mission. Atlas can save Bennett Industries, modernize it, make it relevant again. Or we can let it fail under current leadership. And I suppose you think you should lead it? Michael sneered, but the effect was weakened by his obvious desperation. No, I replied calmly. I think Bennett Industries should be led by someone competent. Someone chosen for ability, not birth order. The board chairman cleared his throat. Perhaps we should hear Ms. Bennett's full proposal. For the next hour I laid out the merger plan. New technology integration, market expansion, job security for most employees. By the end, even Michael had fallen silent. The vote was unanimous. Bennett Industries would merge with Atlas Technologies, keeping its name but operating under my larger corporate umbrella. As the board members filed out, Michael remained behind, staring at the empire he'd lost. How long? He asked finally. How long have you been planning this? I haven't been, I replied honestly. I built Atlas to create something new, not to take over something old. You did this part yourself, Michael. Every time you dismissed innovation, every time you chose prestige over progress, every time you called me just a secretary, instead of seeing me as a potential ally. I gathered my things, heading for the door. The merger paperwork will be ready tomorrow. Don't be late. And Dad's position? He asked quietly. Will be honored as chairman emeritus. You'll be offered a position too in corporate development. A chance to learn what you should have known before taking power. The next few weeks transformed both companies. Atlas's technology revolutionized Bennett's outdated systems. The merged entity's stock soared. And my family, well, they learned to live with a new kind of narrative. Mom stopped arranging suitable jobs and started asking about the ones I'd created. Michael, stripped of his CEO title but learning humility in his new role, discovered he actually had talents when he wasn't trying to prove his birthright. Me. I kept the simple black blazer now hanging in my office as a reminder. Not of where I came from but of how far I'd gone while they weren't looking. Because sometimes success isn't about proving people wrong. It's about proving yourself right even when no one else can see it. And sometimes the best revenge isn't in taking over a family business. It's in building something so much bigger that the family business becomes just a small part of your larger legacy. 6 months later, I stood in my Atlas Tower office watching the city lights come on. The Bennett Industries building, now just one small piece of my corporate empire, still stood where it always had. But its lights now shone with new purpose, new technology, new potential. My phone buzzed. A message from Marcus about tomorrow's Innovation Summit where I'd be giving the keynote speech. The topic? Building success in silence. The power of being underestimated. I smiled, remembering all those family meetings where they talked over me, around me, through me. They never noticed that the quiet one taking notes was actually taking names, taking stock, taking control. Their mistake. My victory. And I was just getting started. The elevator doors opened to the 32nd floor of Turner and Pierce, and I pushed my cleaning cart out quietly, just like I had every evening for the past 8 months. The sun was setting over Manhattan, painting the sleek office in shades of amber as the last few employees hurried to finish their work. "Hey, the cleaner's here," Marcus from accounting called out, not bothering to look up from his screen. "Better hide your trash, guys. She's really thorough." A few chuckles rippled through the open office space. I kept my head down, focusing on my task. They weren't wrong about being thorough. I was. Just not for the reasons they thought. "Oh my God, did you see what she's wearing?" I heard Amy from marketing whisper to her cubicle mate. "Those shoes must be from like Walmart or something." They were actually Italian leather, worth more than her monthly salary. But under my cleaner's uniform, nobody noticed. Nobody ever noticed the person behind the mop. That was exactly why I'd chosen this role. "Evening, miss." Robert Chin, the CFO, nodded absently as he passed me in the hallway. I'd sat across from him in board meetings at my previous company, but here in this uniform I was invisible. Just another face in the background of their corporate lives. 8 months ago, when the board of Turner and Pierce approached me about becoming their new CEO, I had one condition: let me work undercover first. I needed to see the company's true culture, not the polished version they'd show a visiting executive. "You want to work as a cleaner?" Board Chairman William Hayes had asked, bewildered. "But you're Sarah Mitchell. You turned around 3 major corporations. You're on the cover of Business Weekly." "Exactly," I'd replied. "Which is why no one can know who I am. Not until I've seen everything." Now, as I emptied trash bins and wiped down desks, I was getting an education no executive training could provide. I learned who inflated their expense reports, who took credit for others' work, who made life hell for their subordinates while kissing up to superiors. I also saw the hidden gems, people whose talent was being wasted because they didn't fit someone's idea of executive material. Like Maria in IT, who stayed late debugging systems without claiming overtime. Or James in operations, whose innovative process improvements were ignored because he was just a junior analyst. I kept detailed notes on my phone, disguised as a cleaning schedule. Every conversation overheard, every pattern observed, every potential I spotted. The real dirt wasn't in their trash bins. It was in their behavior when they thought no one important was watching. "Hey, cleaner." A sharp voice cut through my thoughts. It was Victoria Pierce, yes, that Pierce. Granddaughter of the founder, current VP of sales, and according to my observations, the biggest obstacle to this company's progress. "My coffee spilled," she said, pointing to a puddle on her desk without looking at me. "Clean it up." I grabbed my cloth and moved toward her desk, noting how she didn't even pause her phone conversation. "No, Daddy, of course the numbers are fine. I've got everything under control here." The numbers weren't fine. I'd seen the real sales reports in the files I was supposed to be recycling. Victoria had been hiding losses for months, cooking books with the help of 2 junior accountants who were too afraid to refuse her. "And make sure you get under the keyboard," she added, waving her manicured hand dismissively. "I don't want anything sticky." "Of course, Miss Pierce," I replied softly, continuing my work. She froze, then turned slowly to look at me, really look at me for the first time. Something in my voice must have caught her attention. But I kept my head down, and after a moment she went back to her call. Later that night, as I was finishing my rounds, I found James from operations still at his desk, surrounded by stacks of papers. "You're here late," I said, emptying his trash bin. He jumped, then gave me a tired smile. "Oh hey. Yeah, trying to fix these process reports. Victoria rejected them again. Says they're too complicated." I glanced at his work. Brilliant analysis, innovative solutions, all presented clearly and concisely. "Looks good to me." He laughed. "Thanks, but what would a cleaner know about corporate process optimization?" I smiled behind my mask. "You'd be surprised." "Well, at least you're nice," he sighed. "Most people here don't even see us. The cleaners, the security guards, the maintenance staff. It's like we're invisible. Being invisible can be useful, I replied. You see things others miss. He gave me an odd look, but before he could respond, his phone buzzed. Another message from Victoria, demanding the reports be simplified further. I should go, he said, gathering his things. Big meeting tomorrow. Apparently some new CEO is starting next week. Probably another corporate robot who won't understand what we actually do here. If he only knew. I finished my shift and headed to my real apartment, not the modest one listed in my cleaner's personnel file. As I shed the uniform and stepped into my shower, I thought about tomorrow. My last day of being invisible. My phone buzzed with a message from William Hayes. Board meeting at 9 a.m. Ready to make your grand entrance. I texted back, more than ready. And William? Make sure Victoria Pierce is there. I have some interesting files to discuss. Tomorrow they'd learn that the woman they'd ignored, mocked, and dismissed wasn't just there to clean their offices. She was there to clean house. And some people were about to learn the hard way that karma sometimes carries a mop. The next morning I arrived at Turner & Pierce wearing a tailored Chanel suit and Louboutin heels, a far cry from my cleaner's uniform. The security guard at the desk, Mike, did a double take as I approached. Good morning, Mike, I said, using the same quiet tone I'd used every night for 8 months. Beautiful day, isn't it? His eyes widened in recognition. You're the... I handed him my new ID badge, executive level CO access. Still the same person. Just different clothes. He broke into a huge grin. Oh man, this is going to be good. The elevator ride to the 32nd floor felt different this morning. No cart to push, no uniform to hide behind. Just me, my briefcase, and 8 months of carefully gathered intelligence about every person in this building. The office was buzzing with anticipation about the new CEO. I could hear snippets of conversation as I walked through the open workspace, unrecognized for the moment. I heard she turned around Maxwell Industries in just 2 years. Apparently she's ruthless. Think she'll clean house? That last comment from Marcus in accounting made me smile. He had no idea how right he was. I walked into the conference room where the board was gathering. William Hayes saw me first, his face breaking into a knowing smile. Sarah, he said warmly, loud enough for everyone to hear. Welcome to your first official day. The room fell silent. Victoria Pierce, who had been arranging papers at the head of the table, my seat, looked up sharply. Sarah Mitchell, she said, recognition dawning on her face. But you usually clean your coffee spills? I finished pleasantly. Yes, among other things. The color drained from her face as the implications hit her. Every condescending remark, every dismissive gesture, every phone conversation she'd had thinking no one important was listening, I'd been there for all of it. Please, everyone take your seats, I said, moving to the head of the table. We have a lot to discuss. Victoria stumbled to a chair, still staring at me in horror. The other board members shifted uncomfortably, probably running through every interaction they'd had with the cleaning staff over the past months. First, I began, opening my briefcase. I want to thank you all for this unique opportunity to really understand Turner & Pierce from the ground up. It's been illuminating. I pulled out a stack of folders, 8 months of observations, documentation, and evidence. Now let's talk about some interesting patterns I've noticed. Starting with the sales department's creative accounting practices. Victoria's face went from pale to gray. I don't know what your dash. Page 47 of your report shows $12 million in phantom sales. I cut her off smoothly. The same $12 million that disappeared from the operations budget, only to reappear as consulting fees paid to a company registered to your brother's address. The board members began flipping through their copies of the report, murmuring in shock. That's confidential information. Victoria sputtered. Amazing what people leave in their trash, I replied. Or what they say when they think the cleaning staff is just part of the furniture. William Hayes leaned forward. Sarah, what are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm stating facts. Facts that will be presented to the SEC unless significant changes are made. Starting with the immediate resignation of certain parties. Victoria stood up, her chair scraping loudly. This is ridiculous. I'm a Pierce. This company bears my name. And you've dishonored that name, I said quietly. The security team is waiting outside. They'll escort you to clear out your office. Don't worry about the coffee stains, I know someone who can clean those up. As Victoria was let out, I turned to the remaining board members. Now let's discuss the real changes this company needs. Starting with promoting the talent you've been ignoring. I pressed the intercom. Please send in James Chin from operations. James walked in looking nervous and confused. He stopped short when he saw me. You're new CEO, I nodded. And you're our new Director of Operations Excellence. Unless you think that's too complicated for us corporate robots to understand. He flushed, remembering his words from the night before. But then he straightened up, a slow smile spreading across his face. No ma'am. Not too complicated at all. Good. Because we're about to make some very interesting changes around here. As the board meeting continued, my phone buzzed with messages from throughout the building. Word was spreading fast about the cleaner who was actually the CEO. Marcus from accounting, about those trash jokes. Amy from marketing, your shoes. I am so sorry. Various others expressing variations of panic and regret. I smiled, remembering every dismissive comment, every condescending glance. But this wasn't about revenge. It was about transformation. About seeing who people really were, not who they pretended to be when the bosses were watching. Because sometimes the best way to clean up a company isn't with a mop, it's with the truth. The next few weeks at Turner and Pierce were a whirlwind of changes. The old guard who had coasted on nepotism and office politics found themselves facing a CEO who knew exactly where all the bodies were buried, because she'd literally cleaned around them. I sat in my new office, reviewing personnel files when Maria from IT knocked on my door. She was still wearing her usual casual clothes. I'd immediately abolished the arbitrary dress code that had kept talented tech people from advancing. Ms. Mitchell? The system audit you requested is complete. She hesitated. It's worse than we thought. I gestured for her to sit. Tell me. Victoria Pierce didn't just cook the books. She installed backdoors in our client databases, sold competitive information. And she wasn't alone. We found similar patterns across 3 departments. I nodded, unsurprised. Send everything to legal. Maria? You're our new Chief Technology Officer. The board approved it this morning. Her eyes widened. But I'm not. I don't have the typical executive profile. You mean you're not from an Ivy League school? Don't play golf? Don't have the right last name? I smiled. Neither did I. What you do have is talent, integrity, and a work ethic I witnessed firsthand while everyone else was heading home at 5 p.m. As Maria left my office, I saw Marcus hovering nervously by the door. The same Marcus who used to joke loudly about the help. Come in, Marcus, I called. I assume this is about the audit? He walked in looking like he was heading to his own execution. Ms. Mitchell, I can explain the discrepancies in the reports. You mean the ones you helped Victoria hide? I opened a folder on my desk. Sit down, Marcus. Let's talk about your future. His face went pale. Please. I have a family. I know. 3 kids. College tuition coming up. That's why you went along with Victoria's schemes, isn't it? Afraid of losing your job if you didn't play along? He nodded miserably. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. You're going to provide a full written statement to legal about everything you witnessed. Then you're going to help us clean up this mess. Do that and you keep your job, though not in accounting. Where then? Compliance. Because sometimes the best person to prevent fraud is someone who knows how it works. I held his gaze. Consider it your chance at redemption. As Marcus left, visibly relieved, my assistant buzzed in. Your 2 o'clock is here. The entire sales team. I smiled. Send them in. 30 nervous sales executives filed into my conference room. Many of them had been part of Victoria's inner circle, spreading her toxic culture throughout the company. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, let's talk about the real numbers. Not the ones you've been reporting, but the actual state of our client relationships. For the next hour, I detailed everything I'd observed during my time as the invisible cleaner. The client complaints ignored, the junior staff bullied, the corners cut. But that's all changing, I announced. Starting today, commissions will be based on client satisfaction, not just sales numbers. And speaking of satisfaction, I pressed a button and James appeared with a cart, not unlike my old cleaning cart. Coffee service, I announced. Since so many of you enjoyed having others serve you, you'll now take turns providing coffee for the whole office. Starting with the executive level. Consider it a lesson in humility. The looks on their faces were priceless. Over the next 6 months, Turner and Pierce underwent a complete transformation. We promoted overlooked talent, rebuilt client trust, and created a culture where work ethic mattered more than office politics. The press called it a miracle turnaround. Undercover CEO cleans house and doubles profits, read the Wall Street Journal headline. But the real satisfaction came from smaller moments. Like watching Maria revolutionize our tech infrastructure. Or seeing James implement process improvements that saved millions. Or observing Marcus, of all people, become a dedicated watchdog against corporate fraud. 1 year after my first day as the cleaner, I stood addressing the entire company at our annual meeting. The room was different now, more diverse, more energetic, more authentic. Some of you knew me first as the person who cleaned your offices, I began. You thought that meant I was beneath you. What you didn't understand is that true leadership isn't about being above others. It's about being willing to do what others won't. I gestured to the wall behind me, where we'd hung a new company motto. Excellence starts at every level. Every role matters. Every person contributes. And sometimes, the most important insights come from the people you never thought to listen to. After the meeting, I did something that shocked everyone. I changed into my old cleaner's uniform and grabbed a mop. What are you doing? William Hayes asked, bewildered. Reminding everyone, including myself, where we came from, I replied. And making sure we never forget what we learned. I cleaned the entire executive floor that night just like I used to. But this time something was different. One by one, executives and managers appeared, taking up cleaning supplies, pitching in. Even Marcus was there, awkwardly pushing a vacuum cleaner. I don't know how you did this every night, he admitted. That's exactly the point, I smiled. How you do. Because sometimes the best way to lead isn't from above, but from beside. And sometimes the most powerful position isn't at the top of the org chart. It's wherever you can see the truth about who people really are. As I finally headed home that night, I passed Mike at security. Quite a year, Ms. Mitchell, he grinned. Just Sarah, I corrected him. After all, we cleaned these floors together. And that's the thing about true transformation. It doesn't just change how others see you. It changes how you see yourself. Because sometimes the view from the bottom shows you exactly what needs to be fixed at the top. The wine glass clinked against my plate as my sister Jessica dramatically gestured across our parents' mahogany dining table. I mean, can you believe it? $2 million for my dream wedding. The venue alone costs more than what Sarah probably makes in 5 years. I took a small sip of my water, letting the ice cubes clink softly against the glass. After 10 years of these family dinners, I'd learned that silence was sometimes the best response. But Jessica wasn't done. Speaking of which, she turned to me, her diamond engagement ring catching the light from Mom's expensive chandelier. What exactly do you do now, Sarah? Still pushing papers somewhere. Mom shifted uncomfortably in her chair but didn't speak up. Dad became suddenly very interested in cutting his steak. They'd perfected the art of looking away when Jessica started her usual routine. I work at the Grand Plaza Hotel, I said simply. Jessica's perfectly shaped eyebrows shot up, her red lips curling into a smirk. Oh my God, you're a secretary there? That's actually perfect. She laughed, looking around the table for support. I mean, at least when I have my wedding there, you can get us some employee discount or something. I froze mid-bite. Your wedding is at the Grand Plaza? Of course it is, Jessica rolled her eyes. James proposed at their rooftop restaurant. It's only fitting we have the wedding there too. They're the most exclusive venue in the city. But I guess you wouldn't know that, being just admin and all. Our mother finally attempted to intervene. Jessica, honey, maybe we could talk about something else? Why? I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. Jessica waved her hand dismissively. Sarah's always been the practical one. Some people are meant for bigger things and others, she gestured vaguely in my direction, well, they're meant to support those bigger things. I thought about the contracts sitting on my desk, the meetings I'd led that morning, the team of lawyers who reported to me. I thought about the fact that just yesterday, I'd approved a 7-figure renovation project for the exact ballroom where Jessica wanted to have her perfect wedding. But I stayed quiet. Not because I was ashamed, but because sometimes the best moments come from perfect timing. have you signed the contract yet? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. James is handling all that boring paperwork stuff, Jessica said, checking her reflection in her phone camera. He's meeting with their legal team next week. I just pick everything I want and he makes it happen. That's how it works when you marry someone successful. I nodded slowly, thinking about the preliminary contract that had arrived on my desk this morning. James Parker, CEO of some tech startup, requesting our premium wedding package. The same James who hadn't bothered to check who actually ran the legal department at the Grand Plaza Hotel Group. You know, Jessica continued, warming to her favorite topic herself, maybe I could put in a good word for you with the management there. Get you moved up from reception or wherever you're sitting. It must be so depressing watching other people live their dreams while you just file things. Dad cleared his throat. Jessica, that's enough. What? I'm being nice. She protested. It's not my fault Sarah never had any ambition. Remember when she quit her law firm job? All that education wasted just to be a secretary. The truth was I had quit that soul-crushing corporate law job 5 years ago. But not to become a secretary. I'd been headhunted by the Grand Plaza Hotel Group to revamp their entire legal department. In 3 years I'd been promoted to legal director, overseeing all contracts, acquisitions and legal operations for their entire chain of luxury properties. My salary was probably triple what Jessica's fiancé made, but I'd never felt the need to announce it. Success, real success, doesn't need an audience. Well, I said, standing up and gathering my things. This has been lovely, but I have an early meeting tomorrow. Oh right, Jessica snickered. Got to get those copying machines warmed up early. I smiled, thinking about the meeting I actually had scheduled, reviewing her wedding contract with our events team. Something like that. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed. It was an email from James's assistant, confirming their appointment for contract signing next week. I typed a quick response, signing it with my full title. Sarah Mitchell, Legal Director, Grand Plaza Hotel Group. 3 days. In 3 days, Jessica would walk into my office, expecting to find some junior lawyer with her contract. Instead, she'd find me, the person who could make or break her dream wedding with a single signature. Sometimes the best revenge isn't telling people who you are. It's letting them figure it out for themselves. I started my car, thinking about the look that would cross Jessica's face when she realized that her just admin sister was actually the one person standing between her and her perfect $2 million wedding. This was going to be interesting. The morning of the contract signing dawned crisp and clear. I sat in my corner office on the 32nd floor of the Grand Plaza, watching the sunrise paint the city skyline in shades of gold. My assistant, Thomas, knocked softly before entering. Ms. Mitchell, your 9 a.m. appointment is here early. Mr. Parker and... He paused, checking his tablet. His fiancée are waiting in the main conference room. I glanced at the antique clock on my wall. 8:37 a.m. Jessica had never been early for anything in her life. This wedding must really matter to her. Let them wait, I said calmly, adjusting my Cartier watch, a gift to myself after my last promotion. Bring them in at exactly 9. I spent the next 20 minutes reviewing their contract one final time, though I'd already memorized every detail. The Grand Plaza's premium wedding package. Exclusive use of our historic ballroom, top-tier catering, premium floral arrangements, the works. Total cost, $2.1 million. At precisely 9 a.m., I heard Jessica's voice floating down the hallway, loud and demanding as ever. I don't understand why we're meeting in the legal department. James, didn't you say we'd be meeting with the events team? I stood, smoothing my tailored Chanel suit. Another reminder of how far I'd come from the just admin Jessica thought I was. The double doors opened. James entered first, tall, confident, exactly the type Jessica would choose. He stopped abruptly when he saw me, confusion flickering across his face. Behind him, Jessica was still talking, her eyes fixed on her phone. Honestly, these people should come to us. Don't they know who you are? I mean, my sister works here as some kind of secretary and even she... Her voice died as she finally looked up. The phone slipped from her perfectly manicured hands, clattering on the polished marble floor. Sarah, she whispered. I smiled professionally. Good morning, Mr. Parker, Ms. Mitchell. Please have a seat. Jessica's face went through a remarkable series of expressions: confusion, disbelief, horror, and finally, a dawning realization that made her designer lipstick-covered lips tremble. I don't understand, she stammered. This is the legal director's office. Yes, I replied simply, gesturing to the nameplate on my desk. It is. James, to his credit, recovered quickly. Sarah Mitchell? He extended his hand. I had no idea you were Jessica's sister. Your reputation in the hospitality industry is impressive. Jessica's head snapped toward him. What do you mean, her reputation? James looked uncomfortable. Sarah Mitchell is one of the youngest legal directors in the luxury hotel industry. She's transformed the Grand Plaza's legal operations. They've acquired 3 new properties under her leadership. He turned to me. I should have made the connection with the last name. Jessica sank into one of the leather chairs, her face pale beneath her expensive makeup. But you said you worked here. You never said. You never asked, I replied, opening their contract. You assumed. The next hour was deliciously uncomfortable. I walked them through every detail of the contract, watching Jessica shrink smaller with each passing minute. Every time I mentioned a figure, the $50,000 flower budget, the $200,000 catering minimum, she flinched. Now, I said finally, there are a few issues we need to discuss. Jessica's head shot up. Issues? Yes. Our premium package requires a 50% non-refundable deposit. Additionally, there are several date conflicts with your chosen weekend. The ballroom is already reserved for a charity gala I personally oversee. But that's our date, Jessica whispered. We've already sent save the dates. I see. I made a show of checking my calendar. Well, as a courtesy to family, I might be able to help resolve these conflicts. Although, I paused, meeting her eyes, I'm just admin, so my influence might be limited. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with meaning. Jessica's face crumpled as her own cruel comments came back to haunt her. Sarah, I didn't know. I held up a hand, stopping her. Let's keep this professional, shall we? Now about that deposit. As I continued reviewing the contract, I thought about all the family dinners, all the snide comments, all the times Jessica had tried to make me feel small. Now, sitting in my office, wearing a suit that cost more than her first car, I realized something important. Success doesn't need to shout to be heard. Sometimes it just needs to wait for the right moment to whisper. One more thing, I said, pulling out another document. As legal director, I need to approve all premium event contracts personally. So, Jessica, I slid the paper across my desk, watching her eyes widen at the 7-figure total. Shall we discuss how you'd like to proceed? The fallout from that meeting rippled through our family like a stone dropped in still water. By dinner time, my phone was flooded with messages. Mom's tentative apologies, Dad's awkward attempts at reconciliation, and most surprisingly, a lengthy email from James, Jessica's fiancé. I had no idea about the family dynamics, he wrote. Jessica's version of your career path was significantly different from reality. I'm actually embarrassed I didn't connect the dots sooner. Your reputation in the industry is stellar. I sat in my home office, a glass of aged whiskey in hand, reading the messages but not responding. My penthouse apartment overlooked the same city skyline visible from my office, though now it was dotted with evening lights. This view had cost more than Jessica's entire wedding budget, but unlike her, I'd earned every penny myself. The next morning, my assistant Thomas intercepted me as I walked into the office. Your sister has been calling every hour since we opened, he said, holding out a stack of pink message slips. She's also in the lobby. Again. I checked my watch, 7:30 a.m. Jessica, who had never willingly woken up before 9, had been waiting in the lobby of my building. Send her up in 30 minutes, I said, settling into my morning routine. When Jessica finally walked into my office, she looked different. Gone was the perfectly curated Instagram-ready appearance. Instead, she seemed smaller, almost fragile. Sarah, she started, then stopped, twisting her engagement ring nervously. I don't even know where to begin. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. The beginning might work. She sat down, smoothing her skirt with shaking hands. I've been awful to you. For years. I always thought I was the successful one. The one who had it all figured out. And it was easier to believe you were struggling than to admit maybe I was wrong. Wrong about what exactly? I kept my voice neutral. Everything. Her voice cracked. I thought success meant marrying someone important, having the perfect Instagram life. I looked down on you for working, for not being married, for what I thought was a dead-end job. She laughed bitterly. And all this time, you've been more successful than I could ever imagine. I leaned back in my chair, studying her. Do you know why I never corrected you? Any of you? She shook her head. Because I learned something important when I left that law firm 5 years ago. Real success doesn't need validation. I didn't need to prove anything to anyone but myself. But I was so cruel, she whispered. All those comments about being just admin, about copying machines. Yes, you were, I agreed. And now you're sitting in my office, needing my approval for your dream wedding. Life has an interesting way of teaching lessons, doesn't it? Jessica's eyes filled with tears. Are you going to deny our contract? I pulled out the folder containing her wedding documents. Contrary to what you might think, I'm a professional. I don't mix personal feelings with business decisions. I opened the contract. However, there are some things we need to discuss. For the next hour we talked, really talked, for the first time in years. I explained the actual terms of the contract, the responsibilities and obligations, the reality of planning a multi-million-dollar event. She listened, really listened, without interrupting or dismissing my expertise. There's one more thing, I said finally, pulling out a separate document. The charity gala scheduled for your preferred date? It's for a foundation supporting women in corporate leadership. As the chair of the foundation's board, I could potentially move some things around. Her head snapped up. You do that? After everything? On one condition, I said, meeting her eyes. You join the foundation's mentorship program. Spend 6 months learning what it really means to build a career, to earn respect rather than expect it. But I don't have a career, she stammered. I've never really worked. Exactly. I handed her the foundation's brochure. Maybe it's time to change that. To my surprise, she took the brochure with trembling hands and actually started reading it. Would you be my mentor? She asked quietly. No, I said firmly. You need to learn from someone who isn't family. But I'll be watching your progress. As she left my office that day, something had shifted between us. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. She had finally seen me, not as her struggling sister, not as someone to mock, but as the woman I'd become while she wasn't looking. 3 months later, I sat in the back of our foundation's quarterly meeting, watching Jessica give her first presentation. She wasn't polished or confident yet, but she was trying. Really trying. Her Instagram posts about luxury shopping had been replaced by posts about professional development and women in business. My phone buzzed with a message from James. Thank you. He's different now. Better. I smiled, remembering that family dinner where Jessica had laughed about me being just admin. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving people wrong. It's helping them become better people in spite of themselves. The next family dinner was different. Jessica didn't dominate the conversation with wedding talk. Instead, she asked me about my career journey, about the challenges I'd faced, about the lessons I'd learned. I can't believe how blind I was, she said quietly as we helped Mom clear the dishes. All those years I thought I was better than you because I had the perfect life on paper. But you were building something real. I handed her a plate to dry. It's never too late to build something real of your own. She nodded, looking down at her engagement ring. I know. That's why James and I are postponing the wedding. I want to find my own path first, build my own success story. I smiled, thinking about the contract still sitting in my desk drawer. Sometimes the biggest victories aren't the ones we plan. They're the moments when those who once looked down on us finally look up and see us clearly. And sometimes, just sometimes, they become better people because of it.